Oh, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. So I would now like to call the September 16th, 2025 City Council Longmont City Council study session to order. The live stream of this meeting can be viewed at the city's YouTube channel, https longmontpublicmedia.org/watch, or Comcast channels 8 or 880. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Hildago Faring.
Here.
Councilmember Christ.
Present.
Councilmember McCoy.
Present.
Councilmember Popkin.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Yarborough. Mayor Pro Tem, a quorum is present.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, anyone wishing to speak at public invited to be heard, we only have one since it's a study session, will need to add his or her name to the list. I have the list now, so you're out of luck if you haven't signed up yet. So only people on the list will be invited to speak at public invited to be heard. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. So are there any motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agendas? Okay, I do have one, and it's more of a request for information on to be added tonight. The other day, we received our alley beautification, and there was a calendar invite for the alley beautification project or community meeting at, and where'd it go? It is at Westview Plaza parking lot at 1850 Main Street, which will be occurring tomorrow at 6 p.m. So this was brought forward by the motion the mayor and I were working on as far as building the alley and trailways. So now the project is coming forward, and I've been hearing from members of the public about, what is this going to look like, what to expect. And I'm really hoping to get the word out there so people know that this is coming and how they can participate. Can I take that one?
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. So the meeting tomorrow is the community organizing meeting. So this is a couple of parts to this whole project. It's very exciting. So tomorrow, members of Community Neighborhood Resources will be meeting with members of the community to find out what kinds of projects and things they would like to do in that neighborhood. Rather than, just doing the alley kind of cleanup work that I think was actually completed about the same time as your motion was, what this has really turned into is a community convening event. And so tomorrow they'll be discussing what kinds of projects they'd like to do in the neighborhoods. And then after that, we will be able to establish what resources are needed to be able to accomplish those projects. And then a date will be set for the actual public project, everybody come and help. So tomorrow is really geared towards the neighborhood. Of course, the council is invited to attend as well, and members of the public can certainly come, but it's not the big promotional event. Once we actually have a plan down for what we'll be doing in that neighborhood, then we'll certainly invite the public and plenty of folks to come help.
Okay, and then, oh,
Pardon me? I'm not totally sure. It depends what the neighborhood decides tomorrow. Yeah, I
Okay.
think we'll know tomorrow.
okay, and then, something to think about is we have those 2 weeks of the Hard to Recycle event coming in
Good point.
October.
Mhm.
So it would be wonderful to be able to coordinate those two around the same time. So as people are cleaning up or looking, if there's things large items that can be recycled, that they have that easy disposal during the event.
I will certainly mention that to Adriana.
Okay.
And then Harold had said, is it going to be in October? I mean, I don't know that you can get too much later in the year.
Yeah,
It's going to
yeah.
start to get cold, but the actual date will be decided by the neighborhood tomorrow.
Got it. Wonderful. And then, so I think as we look, I know that Councilmember Yarborough, and which I want to acknowledge that she is here. Are you here? Yeah. Are you present? So looking at other areas around as well. So, I don't want this to be something like that's a one and done, but having the community gather together, look at areas of need and how we can be the agents of change and supporting that. So not just all on you guys, but what can we all do to help? And I'm ready with my gloves and
Very good.
all that stuff.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Thank you, Mayor
Thank
Pro
you.
Tem.
It was just for an update. So does anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Nope.
What were
Okay.
the dates for the hard to recycle?
Oh, it's 2 weeks, and I believe, it's actually, if you have the app to find I have my Longmont recycling app did I get my trash and recycle? I saw that compost is off the list because we're no longer universal composting. Is that correct? Ms. Cedar? Yeah? Okay. That's why I noticed so we have the paper shredding event. Hard to Recycle event starts Monday, October 6th and runs through Friday, October 10th, and then again Monday, October 13th through Saturday, October 18th. Okay. Yeah, and get the app. Okay, very good. So we are now at first call, public invited to be heard. The first person on the list is, I saw Nathan, but it's crossed out. Is that, okay, for now. Okay, so Charles Schilling. Oh, no, turn on your mic, please.
Now are we live? Yep. Hello, my name is Charlie Schilling, and my address is 224 Francis Street. I wanted to highlight what we just talked about here and thank Councilperson Hidalgo Perez for making a motion for this alley beautification. I think a lot of times people make motions and they're not really identified or called out for that. So I think this is great. Our alleys are just another small part of what makes Longmont a cool place to live. I love them. Others do too. I always wanted to live in a house with an alley, so I'm really thrilled about this. So yeah, at this meeting, let's figure out how we pick up the trash, trim back the bushes, maybe identify potholes that have not been called in. This is a great idea. And I'd like to see if possibly we could add streets to that effort to beautify Longmont. I think that's been mentioned. And I don't want to blow this up, but I do want to pile on a little and see how we can do more things to help Longmont a great place. Like the section on Main Street between 11th and 15th. Clean up overgrown landscaping and other things that can make our city more appealing to those that live here, to those that are visiting, and most importantly, to businesses that are kind of cruising along Main Street and looking, is this a place where I want to bring my business? Because that's near and dear to my heart, is to try to figure out how we can bring good paying jobs to Longmont. So you talked about the event. That's great. Just do what you can to make this effort more visible so that all know about it. Sounds like you're doing a pretty good job with that, but I try to keep in touch, and I didn't know about it, and I know it's hard to advertise this stuff. And also make it easy for those that don't know how to navigate the city's website. I don't want to come up here and pile on the website, but it's a little tough to navigate, and do what you can to make that easy to do. Also, I believe Councilperson Hidalgo Ferris is looking into a transit solution to DIA. We don't have that now, and I don't know that we're going to get it, but I hear a lot of grief about, geez, why don't we have that? So thank you for doing that and all the other things that all of you all do. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on the list now, Nathan Drashner.
My apologies at making it complicated.
Oh, I saw it twice.
So I'm back here again today. Unfortunately, I thought it was best to inform you guys all there was an incident at the house on Winding Drive over the weekend. On Sunday, unfortunately, emergency services was called to the house, and someone was removed from the house in a stretcher. We're pretty concerned about the fact that now obviously this is not working out very well for the people that are actually in the facility either. There's a lot of health and safety issues already involved in this, and doing a little bit of research, this is 6 months in to a facility existing to have people being taken out on stretchers already. That's pretty concerning. I understand that you guys are trying really hard and working with the state to try to get things taken care of, but those solutions are probably a year plus away. We don't want to see anyone else get hurt or any other injuries happen or any other tragedies occur. So, I'd ask for at least an update from the council at some point in the near future. I believe I emailed you all on July 31st. I hadn't heard anything since then, requesting an update based off of the poor answers we received from the BHA, where they documented that they weren't even aware when the house started operating. So some sort of update to the community at a minimum, and we'd like to work with you to try to come up with a plan. To that end, after me, we've got actually a recovery provider who's going to speak a little bit to you about what a recovery housing provider that's going to speak a little bit to you guys about what she's seen that concerns her. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Sheila Roberts.
Hi, good evening. I am not political. I'm not really comfortable in this setting, but my name is Sheila Roberts, and I run a state certified level 2 recovery residence here in Longmont. That certification allows my organization to receive funding. And let me just pause there because there's not a lot of information about recovery residences. And it appears to me that this issue is about money for the provider. And it's something that this council has the power to address. That certification that I'm talking about is what qualifies sober living homes for federal funding. In return, we follow basic standards of safety, care, and accountability and support people working hard toward changing their behavior to maintain lasting recovery. I'm speaking to you not just as a provider, but also as a survivor of early childhood trauma, a licensed real estate agent, and the former landlord to the operator of the house at 2200 Winding Drive. When it comes to housing, I believe in integrity and responsible ethical practices. People in recovery from substance use disorder, or SUD, are recognized under federal law as legally disabled. They are a vulnerable population, often carrying deep trauma. At my program and in my organization, we do track ACE scores, or adverse childhood experiences. Our residents average 6.875 score out of 10, a dangerously high level of trauma requiring real structure and support. And that's why oversight matters. Recovery homes should be designed to promote healing, not run as a bed for rent business. What recovery isn't, or when recovery isn't the primary goal, and when there's no structure or accountability, it puts both the residents in the homes and the surrounding neighbors at risk. The house in question may house individuals in justice, reentry recovery, or reentry, but not necessarily operating with recovery as a primary focus. And when the city passed this ordinance in May, it grandfathered in this property, allowing it to operate without meaningful oversight. And I'll just ask the council, did you know the operator's charging $1,200 per bed? It's about money. And you guys really have the only power to act.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Next one, Lance Whitaker.
Mayor and council, my name is Lance Whitaker.
Okay, get close to the mic.
My name is Lance Whitaker, 1750 Collier Street, Longmont, Colorado. Been in residence for over 40 some odd years. I was not too happy with today's National Day, so I decided that we're going to just do it tomorrow. And tomorrow will be Professional House Cleaning Day. I need a couple of those. National Monte Cristo Day, National Apple Dumpling Day, which is awesome, National Constitution Day, and National Citizenship Day. So thank you very much. Also support fruit trees in parks, so that'll be about it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Great, thank you, Lance. Okay, the last one on the list, Scott Stewart.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Scott Stewart, 229 Grant Street. You're going to hear tonight about the some of the budget items. One of the budget items is going to be some stuff about the airport. Administrative transfer fee policies, fee payment for the enterprise funds, major funds. This is money that goes back into the general fund. There's a note at the bottom of this that says 50% of the fee is waived for the airport. That's taking money out of our general fund. Airport fees. Fees and charges will be reviewed annually to determine whether all operating expenditures are recovered. We're not recovering all the fees. We should be adjusting the fees so that we can recover all the operating expenditures. Why do we continue to discount the administrative transfer fee at the cost of the general fund for the airport? At the very least, you know, you can go through the budget. We got what, page 554 on the proposed budget, operating and maintenance. Administrative services projected at 119,000. That's half of what they should be charged. So at the very least, on this budget page, put an asterisk so that it's clear that that this is not a full charge. Just add an asterisk. The community has a misunderstanding that the airport is this boondoggle of a, it pays for itself, it does all of that stuff. If you look at the city's geographic location for tax revenue for 2024 of the airport, tax revenue. Anyone want to guess what came out of the airport for tax revenue? Everybody thinks it's a lot of money. It's $23,758. Insignificant in a city this size for 261 acres to be bringing in revenue of $23,758. Just put an asterisk next to the thing so we're honest in our presentation to the community.
Thank you. Okay. So seeing no one else on the list on public invited to be heard, we're going to move up special reports and presentations. There are no special reports and presentations. So we're moving to the study session items, the 2026 proposed budget presentation. It's exciting stuff here. Yep, there we go. Make it happen.
Hey, Eugene.
So, Mayor, Council, you're going to see
Yes.
a lot of slides.
Okay.
How
How many slides were on there?
There's a lot. There's over 100.
Over 100. Y'all hear that?
So we have worked with staff this time to do this a little bit different. We mentioned when we went through the CIP process, a lot of times the CIP would prompt questions regarding the fund. And so we're actually doing this by category. So both of those pieces are together to try to bring all of it into a more streamlined approach. I will be watching time because I know this is a daunting process for you. So about every 30, 45 minutes, I'll reach out to see if you want to break just to not have numbers swimming around in your head as we're moving through this. Before we get started, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is when we started this process, we talked about the headwinds that we were seeing in this budget cycle in terms of use tax and what that was doing as we're looking at next year's budget and dealing with it this year. We got the latest returns, and what I wanted to tell you all is it's better. It's not, the issue's not solved, but it's better. So we are starting to see a little bit of breathing room versus what we talked to you all before. So I just wanted to start with that piece. It's not enough of a tailwind where we're going to change our projections. We're still going to hold with our projections of flat. But the information that Teresa sends out, you'll see that we're not 20% down on use tax. And it is clear that this is a use tax issue. I've talked to you all at different points. I had a meeting with Boulder County managers, and again, we're all seeing this. And everybody in that meeting is holding sales and use tax flat as we look going into next year's budget. Sandra?
All right, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Sandra Cifuentes, Budget Manager. Today, as part of our 2026 proposed budget presentations, we're going to be covering the following topics. So we're going to be going over the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement program. I am going to give you a quick overview of the financials, and like Harold said, there's staff here tonight from various departments that are going to be touching on some of their major funded projects. I do want to point out that not all funded projects are going to be highlighted tonight. The complete list of projects is included in the 26 to 2030 CAP document. And they're listed starting on page 15, so you can reference that. And then we're going to touch base on next light and utility budget summaries. These are included within the CAP presentation, and we will be reviewing that tonight as well. And then we're going to close it with the new Technology Services Fund. We're going to give you a quick overview of that. And then I did want to point out that your council packet did include answers to some questions that have been brought, in previous meetings. So feel free to look at that. If there's any additional questions on these, please let us know. And like Carol said, we're going to kind of stop after every section, see if you have any questions, and figure out if we need any breaks in between.
Councilmember Yarborough suggested we have walk-up music when the staff comes up, and we just didn't quite have enough time to pull that together. We'll see if we can get it for the next time.
Are you ready for this? I'm done.
No break dancing?
Yeah.
Oh, down the
Saw that on
stairs.
some other city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't break dance, so I'm sorry.
All right, so we'll start with what is CIP. We throw this acronym quite a bit. What is CIP? It's a capital improvement plan. It's a 5-year document we put together on an annual basis that includes city infrastructure needs for the next 5 years. In order for a project to qualify and be included in the document, it does need to meet 2 criteria. The first is that it needs to have a life expectancy of 5 years or more, and the second is that it needs to have a minimum cost of $10,000. If it doesn't meet both of these, then we still include it in the adopted or the budget, but we don't highlight it as a project. It's treated more as an operating capital expense. Projects that are showing funded status in 2026 are included in the proposed budget, and the out years are simply a way for us to plan for future infrastructure needs. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, we do update this annually, and this is to ensure that we have the most up-to-date information, including project costs, project scopes, incorporating changes in priorities and things like that. Here's a look at CIP costs over time. So this gives you information from 2020 to 2030. So the first 5 years to the left, these are actuals. So 2020 to 2024, these are actual expenses that were paid and incurred in that given year. And then we have a large spike in 2025. That is not how much we've spent or how much we plan to spend at the end of the year necessarily, but rather how much we have available to us to spend. And we'll go into a little bit of what makes up this amount, but the vast majority of it is carryover. So these are budgets from 2024 or prior years that haven't been fully spent. And the reason why we have to be fully appropriated is because by code, we cannot grant contracts or bids unless we have a full appropriation. And then for 2026 to 2030, these are the last years on the right of the graph. This is what we're proposing to fund for the 26-2030. And as you can see, the annual amount aligns more closely to how much we're actually spending on a yearly basis. Here's the same information, CIP cost over time, but this layers in categories. So first 5 years to the left, actuals, that gives you the category breakout, 25 revised, and then the 5 years to the right, this is how much we're proposing by category. In 25, the top 3 categories with the most funding included water, transportation, parks, rec, and open space projects. So the $256 million that we currently have in revised budget, like I mentioned earlier, the vast majority is carryover. So 72% or $185 million of that $256 million is carryover dollars or new appropriations that have been brought to you from the beginning of the year to now. And then 28% of that, which is $71 million, this is how much was adopted last year when we brought the 2025 to 2029 CIP. The chart to the, or the table to the left, this just gives you the total funded by category with the biggest categories listed first. So it's now mid-September. How much of that have we spent? So through yesterday, we actually updated this. We've spent 47% of that $256 million. And that's either spent or encumbered. And then 53% of that is still remaining to be spent. The chart down below, the orange is how much we've spent and or encumbered, and the blue is how much we still have available by category. How this translates to dollars, so $120 million has been spent or is committed through yesterday, and 136 million is still remaining, and we've identified those categories with the largest amounts of money that haven't been spent. And you'll notice water is the highest category, and that's largely due to those water bonds. This is just a list of the top 10 budgeted projects in 2025. I won't go through all of these, but you'll notice the one at the very bottom, Water 191, Montgomery tank replacement. This is a bond project, and we have 40.7 million unspent. I believe about 33 million of that is bond dollars. So what are we proposing for 2026? We're proposing to fund 93.2 million. The chart on the right shows you the total percentage by category. And the table on the left, this just gives you the top categories, which are listed first. And the top three for 2026 are transportation, water, and electric. For the full 5-year CIP, we're proposing to fund 357.8 million. The top categories and all the categories are on the left. Same three categories as what we're proposing to fund in 26. Those are transportation, water, and electric. And the percentage of total by category is on the chart on the right. So this chart here shows you CIP cost over time. So as you can see, we're starting to show a decline. It's trending downward. And this is just really to show that our goal is to finish what we have, underway working. So we want to complete the projects that we're working on currently before we start adding new projects. And this is also preparing us for future years, for new projects that are going to be coming up in the works in the near future. Anything you want to add to that, Harold?
Yeah, so a couple of things with this. One of the things that we found, about 3 years ago, when we started seeing a lot of projects were continuing to move into our CIP process and our public improvement fund. And one of the things that we noticed is it was tough for us to finish anything. And so we made the decision to really say, look, we've got to finish these projects before we're bringing new projects in, because it was really our capacity as staff to start new ones and finish was really slowing us down. So we made that change in the system. The other thing that we talk about is, so when we come in and we talk to you all about rate conversations in the various utility funds and what we're looking at, in those conversations, what you really see us doing is actually looking at a 10 and 15-year horizon in terms of the projects that we're bringing in. So while we show you a 5-year CIP, it really is also based on what we're looking at coming, heading our direction in terms of what we need to do in the next 10 to 15 years. And then every year as we're budgeting, you're seeing us step into that. So we're looking out over a substantial period of time to determine what we need to do, how we need to accrue the funds, bring it together so that when we're ready to pull the trigger on those projects that we have the funds accrued. A lot of times you'll also see it when we start talking about bond issuances in the future where we issue the debt. And again, we're probably looking at a little bit beyond that horizon, but it's really these large scale projects that are driving that. Water's probably the best example. Where we see it is when we issued the debt, we were looking at the Nelson Flanders expansion. We had issues with inflation and other issues, and so we restructured it where we decided to focus on, and I'm probably giving part of your presentation, so if I am, I'm sorry, but we're going to then focus on the Montgomery tank because that really set the base infrastructure that we needed in place to then do the Nelson Flanders expansion, which gave us more storage capacity as we were heading into that project. So you see that flexibility coming into play when we're looking at how we really manage these really large capital projects.
All right, and then this is just that same information, 26 to 2030 CAP cost over time. We see that trending downwards. This just layers in the category by year. Are there any questions so far?
Councilmember Christ. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So just to add on to what you were saying, Harold, what is the optimum number of projects to have open in 1 year?
That's a hard question because it depends on operating groups and how many projects the operating groups have in their portfolio. So if, for example, if 80% of our projects are in water, that's too many projects in water. And so we're looking at it by each individual group and what they're working on. So to say what's the optimal number by the organization, that's hard because we have so many different areas in the organization working on capital projects.
But there are some shared relationships there. So not every work group can have a big project going every year
it depends. So like if you look at the water projects, that's pretty self-contained when you look at Nelson Flanders, and it's not necessarily touching other areas of the organization, whereas transportation projects do. And that was an area that we were watching pretty close in that not only does it touch other operating departments, so if you're going in and you're rebuilding a street, you're relocating the utilities in the street, making the improvements you need, but then you're also bringing in an operational component in terms of what's that increasing. So like Kaufman Street, significant project, but another capital project's also our pavement management program, which is a little bit different. And so when we think about it, I would probably say 7 to 10 large scale. If they're all encompassing, it strains our resources.
And do you have a management tool to help you figure that out?
So they're doing so we're working on dashboards and things like that. So when we look at dashboards, Becky's group they're building dashboards for us that really tell us who's working on what are the problems they're encountering, what the staff capacity is. And so we're moving into more of a real-time data set that we can evaluate in terms of managing those projects. As they're building it out and we move into the work that Raven's doing with project management as we set deadlines on the projects. They're building the dashboard where it'll alert me if we start missing deadlines, so we can dig into it. And having that conversation with my direct reports, they've then said, well, I want to know if we're going to miss the deadline before we miss it, so I want to deal with it before it hits you. So they're building dashboards out to try to get us that information.
Nice. So my ultimate question here is, it looks like we have space going forward, but as we have urban renewal projects, those are going to take a lot of infrastructure and I assume hit many different departments.
Exactly. And urban renewal is actually a really good one where when you look at an urban renewal project, it is inherently a development project, but it's a development project that when you're looking at master infrastructure plans and you're looking at street construction and water lines and things like that, that's where we have to start really watching that capacity as we're looking forward and our ability to handle it. A little bit of a tailwind into those projects is that they're typically public-private partnerships, of which your private partner is also bringing in their own team that has expertise in this, so it's not that you're fully absorbing it internally.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, in terms of how the urban renewal projects would factor in, those are more strategic, most typically infill projects, though, right?
Correct.
So as compared to another new development that expands the infrastructure boundaries of our city, this should leverage some, if not most, existing infrastructure where possible, right? I mean, there'll be new infrastructure certainly built, but it's less of a footprint, right?
Exactly. It's less of a footprint. You want to take advantage of the infrastructure that you have in place. So, infill is less expensive than expanding into greenfield because you're managing the miles of pipe, street, and everything else that you're running. In many of those cases, you're maybe utilizing the same pipe. There may be some relocation of utilities that you get into. So it's not like you're digging into a greenfield and literally designing a brand new system. An example of that is the public-private partnership on Costco. I mean, that was a full redesign, building out the infrastructure on a greenfield site, which is distinctly different than the redevelopment side. Redevelopment does bring its own challenges, but what you're trying to do is use the existing infrastructure to the best of your ability.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, go ahead and we'll continue.
All right, well, Daryl's going to help us present on electric.
What would have been your song?
I think there were three.
Sandy has the song list.
So I think one was Electric Avenue. I think one was Power to the People. And then I can't remember what the third one was. But
I would suggest Final Countdown.
I can sing it for you if you want. I listened to Europe as a kid too. So, good evening. This is a tongue twister. Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring, members of City Council. Good to see you all again. I'll be here every week for the next couple of months, so you'll get tired of me for sure. Just a really quick overview of LPC. Obviously, you know that we are a municipal electric utility. We've been around for about 125 years. Our big priority, really, the thing that we focus on is balancing reliability, affordability, and sustainability. We've been serving the city for about 125 years, like I mentioned. We also serve some areas out near Lyons and Hygiene. About 49,000 electric meters, and that's growing by the day. 320 of those are opt-out meters, and about 8 of those are remaining to be upgraded. I want to do a quick shout out to some of the folks who are here tonight, Susan, Clint, and Teddy. They were very helpful in pulling together some of these slides, and we also have Rocco Sapino and Hannah Mulroy on hand if there are questions that I cannot field. You should find this familiar. The council priorities drawing is a favorite cartoon of ours. I want to highlight 4 of the priorities specifically. So climate action, housing for all, equity, safety, sustainability, and core services. LPC obviously supports all of the council priorities, but these 4 specifically. In terms of climate action, we talk a lot about carbon reduction. Obviously, that's a community goal. We're working toward 100% renewable energy supply, as you know. In terms of housing for all, we'll be bringing forward some revised design standards here in the next couple of months, and you'll be looking at those. And that's really to kind of reduce the amount of space that's taken up by easements and that sort of thing, to really put as much housing on usable land as we can. In terms of equity, safety, and sustainability, obviously the energy that we purchase and provide to our customers is for all of our customers. And so from an equity perspective, I think that really helps drive that forward. And really our daily mission focuses on the core services, so providing safe and reliable power that's affordable for all of our customers. I'm going to go outside my comfort zone a little bit here and talk about the budget for the next 3 slides. Our total budget for 2026 proposed is about 9% more than what we had in 2025. Obviously, the majority of our revenue at LPC comes from electric rates. There's a little bit of aid to construction, which is basically, we build something and then we get paid back for it. But the majority is from the electric rates. In 2026, we're continuing our focus on maintenance, but in this case, we will be enhancing our maintenance program. I talked a little bit before, I think during the rates discussion, about a new maintenance crew that we're proposing, so that is included in the budget, and of course, making progress on our renewable energy goals. Here, you can see what our 2026 budget would have been without a rate adjustment. Again, we came a few weeks ago and we'll be coming again soon to request your approval on an electric rate increase. If we don't have the rate increase, we'll be about $8 million short in terms of what we will bring in versus what we expect to spend. So you can see that comparison there. And then here we look at the fund balance. So there is a minimum fund balance requirement, sort of money in the savings account that we have to maintain. And that goes up and down through the years, really is a mechanism for us to provide some rate stabilization so we're not hitting people with rate increases and then no rate increases and back and forth. In the next year or for next year, we will be proposing making an adjustment to our minimum fund balance. Before it was based on 60 days of operating budget and included purchase power and some percentage of our 5-year CIP. Going forward, our proposal will be to actually extend that to a 90-day operating budget instead of 60, but we will not be including the purchase power because the thought is in this sort of extreme scenario, we wouldn't be selling power, so we wouldn't be buying power, so we wouldn't necessarily need to have that on hand. So some project highlights here looking into 2026. So ELE 103 is distributed energy resources. This is where we look at investing in community solar for those folks who don't necessarily have a roof where they can put their own solar. We're also looking at installing some batteries. You know, we're working with Platte River, as you know, to install some batteries in town, but we're also looking at some even smaller scale batteries that would maybe be more sort of under our control, just to give us a better understanding of how they work, why they work, how they can work, and that sort of thing. And then a big part of that Platte River battery that we're working on has to do with landscaping. That's not something that we actually included in the cost of the battery, so that's something that we're taking on ourselves, if that makes sense. And so landscaping, it includes, you know, things like a wall around the battery and that sort of thing, and any sort of landscaping that maybe the community might request as part of our outreach program. The next CIP project that I want to highlight is our electric system capacity increases. So again, this is about expanding our capacity. So you had mentioned earlier, you know, talking about infill versus expanding our service territory. So in this case, we're really working to leverage our existing infrastructure. So we've got 6 substations. We want to be able to tie them together so that if there's some maintenance going on, or if there's a problem at one, we can serve that same load from a neighboring substation. We're also looking to expand capacity, and as part of that, we're going to be integrating with our distributed energy resources. All right, and then for the last CIP that I'd like to highlight, we're talking about reliability and rehabilitation. So this is where the new maintenance crew comes in. So obviously hiring the crew is one thing, but now you need to have work for them to do. And we have a long list of things and projects that we want them to work on. The engineering and operations team have been meeting for the last few months, prioritizing and putting together really that list so that if and when you approve our new maintenance crew, we can hit the ground running with a long backlog of projects for them to work on. In terms of impacts, you know, the short term is really we're looking at investing in our infrastructure, where we would see the highest likelihood of failure. Obviously, where's it going to break first? That's what we want to fix first. In the long term, what we really want to see is a decrease in unplanned and emergency outages due to that equipment failure. We're also looking at some technology elements of this project. So things like, remote controlled devices rather than calling out a crew to open a switch or something like that. Maybe it's something that we can do remotely. There's also some wildfire mitigation that we're looking at as well, which again is going to incorporate new technology. So circling back then to that beautiful cartoon that I referenced earlier, really, what are the community impacts? Well, it makes sense then that the council priorities that are sort of, moving us forward are going to directly affect the community. So again, from a climate action perspective, we're looking at more renewable energy resources as time goes on. We've talked a little bit about a virtual power plant. I believe Platte River was here talking a little bit about that, which is things like thermostats and devices within the home that can adjust as sun, wind are also adjusting. Housing for all, again, I mentioned the denser and more affordable housing per our urban design standards. From an equity perspective, again, renewable energy is for all the customers, not just for those who can afford to do it themselves. And in terms of our core services, our goal is really to enhance our reliability. This was my first foray into AI image generating. So for what it is, we really look at our priorities as a three-legged stool. And so reliability, sustainability, and affordability. And really what you want to avoid is an overemphasis in one. Because if you think about it visually, one leg will get really long and the stool will tip over. So it's really about balancing those three legs of the stool. This is not a new challenge. This is not something that's specific to 2026. It's been something that's been ongoing, will happen in 26, and will continue through the future. So really, it's about just maintaining that balance. Performance measures, I don't have specific performance measures to talk about tonight, but I can give you just some examples. So one example is what we call CAIDI, SAFE, and SAIDI. These are industry standard reliability metrics, so you can compare yourself to other entities, other utilities, and other cities. It really has to do with how long an outage is, if a customer experiences one, how long they can go in between experiencing outages, the number of time they experience outages, and that sort of thing. So really, thinking back to that reliability focus that we're looking at here, the intent is to keep those numbers down before they start to really, exponentially increase. We can also look at rates here at the city compared to some of our neighboring utilities. We're part of a group, CAMU, that reviews and compares electric rates, and will continue to do so just to make sure that we're benchmarking against those other cities. And then the percentage of renewable energy supply, that's something that we can look at on the Platte River website. And, it fluctuates by day, by season, but over time, the intent is for it to become more renewable.
Okay, are you ready for questions?
I am ready for questions, please. Thank you.
Matthew, our Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Hidalgo, and thank you, Daryl.
Sure.
Just a couple quick questions here. On the rates chart there, what's the y-axis in?
It depends. Mostly it's seconds or minutes. It's often a duration of time.
For the July rates by
Oh, I'm sorry, for the rates.
Yes.
I believe that was $1. I think that's a typical bill, if I can look.
Like
Yeah,
dollar,
I think
monthly dollars?
Monthly in dollars, yes.
So that per average household or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then let me switch. We didn't talk about undergrounding much in your presentation there, but I saw it was partially funded in the CIP. Could you speak a little bit more to kind of the breadth and depth of Longmont's undergrounded electric system? I think it was 78% you said that we're at.
It's around there. I think it's around 70% is undergrounded and about 30. I mean, kind of it's fluctuating and it's getting more and more undergrounded over time. We typically don't just go out to a project and underground it. And what we'll typically do is we'll piggyback on other projects. So if a new development is coming in, obviously the new development will be undergrounded, but maybe there's a sort of a logical place to kind of do that demarc where we'll take overhead and underground to a point. And so in that way, we can piggyback on existing projects and continue to underground our system.
Sure, so that makes sense. And so then to that point, the more infill development projects that we're talking about with urban renewal actually accelerates some of the older system undergrounding. Is that fair to say?
It can, depending on how much
depending on
overhead is there. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we like to see, is we like to see opportunities to underground in an area where we're already doing work.
Right, because otherwise you'd have a lot of some existing neighborhoods or older historic neighborhoods that would kind of get left behind for new developments if they aren't being infilled. So that's great to see. Is there any other way that, how else does LPC think about when to underground other parts of the system aside from development?
Sure. So one area where we might look is for wildfire mitigation. So in general, underground facilities are less prone to be a wildfire danger. And so to the extent that we can underground an area, we'll look at the cost. I mean, it is more costly to underground infrastructure, especially when the overhead seems to be doing fine in certain cases. So, you really need to make that case to underground something if the overhead is working okay. And again, wildfire mitigation is one of those pieces that we look at.
Great, thank you. And then my last question here.
I would also add to that, it's not just development in the sense of redevelopment or housing or something like that. It's also city projects. So I know one project that really had a lot of undergrounding with it was Resilient St. Vrain as we were moving through it. So it's also city projects. And when he says piggybacking, when I talked about if you're redoing a street, you know, what we really want is to deal with all of the utilities at the same time, because the one thing that'll absolutely drive me crazy is if you redo a street and then you're cutting into the street 2 years later to repair something. So it's that partnership across the utilities in terms of how they approach this.
Sure. And then so for the funded parts of underground, as we look in the CIP over the next 5 years, is that for specific like development projects that you're anticipating or infrastructure projects, or is that like kind of the estimate of what we expect we might have, and so we're going to carve that out so we're ready to do exactly what Harold was discussing or what you were discussing?
Both, actually.
Okay.
So there are certain projects that we know that, you know, streets or somebody else is going to be doing, so we'll pull together an estimate of how much it would cost to underground a certain area. But then there are also, you know, just things we sort of expect might happen, and so we want to make sure that we've got the funding available to underground and sort of take advantage of projects as they come along if they weren't necessarily planned many years in advance.
Great. I'll have some similar questions for next slide. But thank you.
And redevelopment actually brings a revenue source for that as well. So when you get into it, there are costs associated with it that they can bring to bear on the projects as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Councilmember Christ.
Thank you. So mine is just an overview type question, and this would be for Ms. Malloy and Mr. Hahn. When we looked at the original budget, we had an increase of 9.85% to the overall budget. And then you're presenting that you have a 9% increase in costs over years. So I'm just saying, some might see that as that 9.85 electric is taking the whole 9% of it. And I just want you to explain the relationship of how yours works in relationship to the whole budget. And this is for general question for the general public.
Well, Teresa's finding that. The one thing I wanted to point out that Daryl brought up is our design standards and density. And I think a lot of times we look at it from an expense standpoint. We don't think about it from a revenue standpoint. The reality is the more dense that your development is, so think of True North, you're actually generating more revenue per linear foot than you would in a traditional suburban style development. So there's also a revenue headwind coming in by adding more density of units in there in terms of what they're collecting on that per linear foot of electric line, which is a tailwind as you look to the future in terms of cost.
And actually, while we're waiting for that, Mr. Hahn, if you would want to talk about what you expect to see in terms of the Meadow substation, the types of landscaping that you think might go there. You mentioned a wall, but I'm familiar with the area, and I think maybe there might be more to that. It's a little bit of regular shape. Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Christ, it's a good question. Really, we want to get some feedback from the community. I know, Harold, I think your backyard looks right at it, so I'm sure he'll have some thoughts as well. But really, the standard substation wall is brick. It's something where you really can't see inside, but, there might be an opportunity there for different colors or for different plants, and vegetation, that kind of thing. Maybe if you want to have some artwork. So I think there are a lot of different things that we can consider just in terms of sort of the visual element of what would sort of keep people safely away from the battery.
And you think you might be able to add some beauty there because it isn't a real pretty spot right now.
To the extent possible. I know that there's a trail that goes through there as well. There's already a substation. So again, to the extent that it makes sense from, to the community and it's something that we can afford, we will certainly be open to suggestions and conversation on that.
Councilmember Chris, Teresa Malloy, Chief Financial Officer. So thank you for indulging me a few moments while I look this up for you. So the electric and broadband fund, legally combined one fund, so that includes both the electric utility as well as Nextlight, is our largest fund budget-wise for 2026. It has been the largest fund budget-wise for a number of years. And I would say that in addition to the needs of the CIP, particularly on the electric side, there is also a huge expense for purchase power. So that is what is really driving the size of that fund. When you look at it compared to the total budget, it is over 26% of our total budget, that one fund alone. So it is the largest one we have.
Thank you very much. So it seems like maybe electric has beat transportation.
It's not a competition,
But isn't it though?
Okay,
All
thanks.
right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you, MPT. So my question is based on the rates chart that was provided in that one slide. It seems that, so first question is, do all 4 member communities of Platte River Power Authority pay the same wholesale rate to purchase power?
Yes and no, depending on some different factors, including our load factor, which basically means how flat is our load, between day and night. The flatter the load, generally the better it is for everybody. And so Longmont's load factor, which is kind of the difference between the daytime load and the nighttime load, if you will, is a little more extreme than, say, the city of Fort Collins. And so that gets rolled into the rate as well. But in general, yes, whatever Platte River purchases on the market, it gets distributed to the cities.
Okay. And so when we look at this chart here, it seems that generally speaking, the rates increase year over year at a somewhat similar rate, or a somewhat similar level of rate increases year over year, except for the 2024, where Loveland has skyrocketed a bit. Is that due to some major infrastructure issues, or why is their rate skyrocketed to what I understand why Estes Park would likely be the highest, less populous municipality? Obviously, the challenges of running the infrastructure up the hills versus along the Front Range is a different challenge. So I'm just curious why Lovelands have skyrocketed so much.
Well, I can tell you that, as Teresa mentioned, the purchase power is 60 to 70% of our budget, depending on the year. So
Right.
that is a big part of it. But the other 30 to 40% is really kind of under our direct control, if you will, even beyond what we can do through the Platte River Board. And so in Loveland's case, I don't know if you know specifically, but I know that they've had some issues, some financial issues, last year. So it's possible that this was a part of that, but I would just be making a guess.
Sure. And, I imagine as we've read the Platte River's communication to us that, of course, rates are increasing based on the policy directions of the 4 member communities. And so I could see why, as well as inflationary issues, as would be imagined. But I think it's definitely indicative that our electric utility for Longmont, specifically LPC, is doing a really good job of managing cost combined with the revenue intake as well. And I think that graphic is very illustrative of the fact that of the 4 member communities, we're still by and far the lowest rates. Because I believe Loveland has a lower populace than the city of Longmont. And Fort Collins obviously has a much higher one. So good job. And I really appreciate this particular presentation that was made as far as LPC is concerned. So thank you.
Sure, thanks.
I think you are right. So when you look at how compact you are versus how spread out you are, that adds to your capital cost. Loveland geographically is more spread out than we are. So that impacts your capital cost and what you have to put in. And then behind that really is this question that we've been talking about the last few years about how you make capital investments to maintain the quality of your infrastructure. If you have constant applied pressure making that investment, what it saves you from are those significant increases when you choose not to do it in an incremental approach, and then all of a sudden you have to. It really shows itself more on the water side in some communities where they may not make investments, and then all of a sudden the problems hit you, and then you have to make the investment. So I think your point is, I think you're on point in what you're saying. I think it's a combination of all of those things that come into play that really start showing what the difference is.
Thank you. Okay, we can continue on unless we want to take a break before. How are you all feeling? We can keep on going. It's only been an hour.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so 3 songs. Blinded by the Light, I think that was one. Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. Sammy Hagar's I Can't Drive 55. We Can't Go Slow is, the intention of that song. So good evening. Hello, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. I'm Valerie Dodd, the Executive Director of Nextlight. Happy to share 5 short slides with you. I've already gotten we got to go fast. Okay, so Nextlight is really focused on 3 themes as we look at 26. And as I sit here and listen to everyone else's presentation, I realize that the first one is a recurring theme. Let's leverage the assets we have. We have a lot of fiber in the ground. Would you believe that 14,000 premises do not have Nextlight service? Hopefully it'll be fewer than that after this evening. But we need to go penetrate further into those households that are fiber enabled but don't have our service today. So it's a tremendous opportunity. Secondly, continue investments in our network. We have to make sure that we maintain a highly reliable and dependent and redundant network that's super fast. Also, I think I heard Daryl say something about expanding capacity. That's something that Nextlight has to do as well. So we're putting some dollars towards expanding capacity in our uplink and to the fiber internet POP down in Denver. So that is one of the investments we'll be making. And then thirdly, I think you'll hear more from Becky on this evening, and that is around investing in technology. Technology is a beautiful thing in that it helps us simplify our processes through automation, digitalization, all of those things. So it's really important in a competitive marketplace that we are very mindful of the customer experience and our employee experience. So we have happy employees delivering great service to our customers. So trying to simplify and streamline processes is really paramount this next year. So here is really all the numbers you need to know. This is our budget at a glance. It's also referred to as a waterfall chart. On the left-hand side, you see that big, long navy bar, $23+ million. That is revenue. That is income that we don't get from the general fund. We get that from customers like you and everyone behind me and online. And so excited that continues to grow for us. I'll dive into that on the next slide. And then to the right, you see 4 chartreuse lime-colored bars. Not sure what the color really is, but it's in our new color palette. And you'll see 4 categories of expense that also total $23 million. So that being said, we have generally a balanced budget. We plan on putting about $140,000 into our reserve fund at the end of the year after we complete the next year. And that should add to a current fund balance sitting around $6 million. We are protecting that money for opportunities and emergencies as they arise. Just real quickly, I want to step through those categories. Personnel is actually down a little bit year over year. I'll show that on a subsequent slide as well. CIP, we're talking a lot about CIP. We're under $3 million. That continues to go down. And you may have also seen on an earlier slide that represents about 3% of the city's total CIP budget. While we think we're super important, we're a really small piece of this pie. Then you see the capital non-operating, that is mostly debt. Great news, it's a big expense number, it's going away soon. And then to the far right is our largest expense category, over $7 million. Guess what that's spent on? It's spent on running the network. It's spent on co-location, fiber transport, fiber, all of those great things that actually make the internet work for you. So diving down into that revenue, that $23 million that I talked about, that represents almost 30,000 subscribers at the end of next year. We plan to add about 600 net subscribers in the 26 calendar year, and about a third of those will come to us in the form of a bulk agreement for an MDU property, also known as multi-dwelling unit or an apartment. We are now up to 66% penetration. Just 5 years ago, we were at 57%. So really proud of that number. Looking at the middle chart, love seeing that upward slide on revenue. Yay, we're growing revenue still, and we're growing it at 3% as opposed to customers at 2%. So the reason that's happening is our team's doing a great job of selling more products into our customers. So we're increasing our average revenue per customer. So now we have people that are buying our routers more often. Used to be we had fewer than 25% of our customers with our router. Now today we're selling about 70% of our new customers are taking our Wi-Fi 6 routers. That's improving revenue. Also, we've secured recently some really large deals with our commercial customers, improving that revenue trend as well. Now, in the third chart in far right column, we'll talk about revenue and customer together. So again, revenue per customer is growing because revenue is improving thanks to those ancillary sales and some commercial sales. But I do want to call out that the trend is up. So average revenue per customer, $65. What happened? Why did it drop down? It seems like a horrible thing. Actually, it's a great thing. It represents the fact that we added 1,000 customers on an income qualifying rate plan with a $25 discount. So that means we were successful penetrating further into markets where customers maybe couldn't have afforded internet in the past. Federal subsidies went away. We decided to keep those subsidies for ourselves. And so really proud that we were able to bring on those customers. Also, we've sold more of our bulk MDU contracts. Again, it's debatable, but basically we get 100% of every unit in an apartment for about half the revenue. So it does put some downward pressure on revenue, but it secures all of those units, typically in a 5 to 10 year contract. So again, it's a good thing. So dipping or diving further into the expense side of things, CIP and general expense. On the left chart, you'll see just the trend year to year, and our expenses are generally flat. Good news, revenue's going up, expenses are flat. That's awesome. So excited about that. And then if you look to the right-hand side, you'll see the chart done by category. So 2 categories I want to focus on. CIP, again, it's only about 3% of the city, and it's less than $3 million for us. That money is spent typically on new construction, new builds, new MDUs, et cetera, as well as customers getting a buried fiber drop for the first time. And so those things are slowing. Our customer growth is starting to slow down to the 2%, as I mentioned. So we're not spending quite as much on CIP. Then the last chart, or the last item, O&M, operating and maintenance budget, which is really, again, I already mentioned, it's the largest expense category that we have, over $7 million. It is up a little bit, but that's a good thing, again, because we're adding the capacity that I spoke about. And furthermore, we are adding some additional redundant paths north. Here we're partnering with our peers in Loveland and Fort Collins and sharing some network, getting some additional redundancy, and sharing some internet pops with them. So it's driving up a little bit of expense right now, but that should flatten out in the coming years. Okay, my final and favorite chart. Now, for the applause, I need a song for this one too. This is our 10-year outlook. I already mentioned that we'll soon be paying off our debt. That is scheduled for 2029, the end of the year. And as I also mentioned, we had almost $5 to $6 million in debt. That comes off the books. So guess what? That money goes into our fund balance. So that gives us additional operating capital, again, for those emergencies and opportunities. And it's really a great thing. So that concludes my slides. I am open for questions, and I'm already anticipating one in this corner.
Oh, he does. Of course he does. Okay.
You don't have to.
I mean, of course I do.
Stop
I already primed Valerie for this.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh gosh, what could it be?
Just 2 questions here. Well, first, just overall, this is impressive to see, and I hope residents who are paying attention at least tune into this part of the budget, because this is such a tangible piece of people's lives and something that's fairly unique for what Longmont provides in terms of services. So kudos there. It's exciting to see the revenue opportunities too that are coming on. The same question I had for Daryl on the undergrounding, and I saw in the CIP, where was that? For the fiber underground conversions, that is also partially funded, it looks like. And I'm just wondering, like, kind of how does Nextlight largely follow the electric system undergrounding? Does Nextlight lead that ever? Like, what's the undergrounding plan here?
Councilmember Popkin, you had it right the first time. We follow LPC's lead. And our challenges with regard to that are squirrels. It's not prairie dogs, it's squirrels. And so, absent undergrounding, we are trying to armor those paths of fiber that are aerial, that are continually getting chewed and cause the onesie-twosie outages for our customers.
Gotcha.
But otherwise, I just follow Daryl.
And did I remember reading this correctly, that you have 114 miles of line here, of fiber overhead?
You stumped me. My number was a little bit different than Daryl's. I was thinking we were more like 15-20% aerial, not 30. Looking, I don't know.
I think that's right. The squirrel, I mean, it sounds funny, but the squirrels are a problem, and they're routinely talking about areas where, and they're going, and that's where they will actually go outside and do it on their own, just because it has such an impact to customers. But I think you're right. It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And is that because I saw this squirrel Nextlight access was unfunded? Is that why they're tapping into?
Yeah.
The last question I had here was on fiber installation and fiber construction. I see one of the check marks for supporting Envision Longmont principles and focus areas is around the Sugar Mill Highway 119 gateway. Is that projecting out? And that's like a substantial amount. It's $5.7 million. And are those the same numbers? Yeah, it's 5.7 million. It looks like. So is that referring to just because there's a lot of stuff happening, or is that specific to a certain project somewhere?
Yeah, I think that is just based on linear need. And so, again, we don't typically spend that money, and we're just waiting, and we have it in the event that we do start undergrounding more.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
The one thing that I did want to talk about with Valerie that we are seeing is one of the challenges when she talks about her customer count. We spend a fair amount of time talking about this in our regular meetings. Is what we're seeing is we did really well with customers when we initiated Nextlight. Her challenge, oddly, is not because of how good Nextlight is. It's when people move in, where you may have had an existing customer, they sell their house, it's wired, where people come from dictate where they go to, because they don't normally think about municipal internet. And so one of the things that we've been spending some time is really how do we bring the profile of Nextlight up for those people that are moving into our community. And so one of the things that we're trying to figure out when we look at the future revenue is how do we get them on a more prominent location, where people that are visiting our community as they're preparing to move in actually have an immediate connection to Nextlight, because that is something that we spend a fair amount of time trying to figure out in terms of how do we connect with those customers.
So is there an opportunity then to connect with the realtors who are working directly with those customers or potential customers?
Yes.
You know, just kind of, here, take a flyer.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we have a lot of programs that are targeting different organizations that talk to home buyers, renters, all of those things. So we have a couple of people that manage those efforts very closely. But we're open to any additional ideas always.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Yarborough.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The additional idea that I have is that I see you at the last time next month at Council at the Market, because I have been at the farmers market. I have met so many people who have just moved to Colorado. As a matter of fact, I was telling Assistant City Manager Sandy Cedar about it, and she gave me some welcome guides, and everyone took them all because of that information. So maybe one idea, I don't know, maybe you all have done this before, but have a booth at the farmers market, because there's so many people moving in the state and so many people who are moving to Longmont in general, that I've learned just being at the farmers market once a month. And I think if you have maybe a booth or something there, and then people will inquire about it, and then maybe you can, tell them more, because there are people who are renting like in Berthoud, but work in Longmont, haven't really found their forever home in Longmont yet. And then, so that can be an option. I don't know if you already do that the other weeks that I'm not there, so.
Yes, Councilmember Yarborough. This may be a little premature, so the cat's crawling out of the bag here, but we are currently working with Boulder County Fairgrounds on a Wi-Fi solution. If any of you go to the farmer's market, you might realize sometimes you can't get a cell coverage. I mean, a cell signal.
That's another song.
Vendors that are having issues actually taking purchases from different visitors and customers. So we are working on agreement, and we will probably be doing a marketing trade with them. And so we're right now evaluating the cost of setting up that Wi-Fi. We're working with one of our vendors, Calix, to get that done. And then we're going to look at, having a greater presence there. So it's kind of a trade deal.
That
Hope
would
that's
be
okay,
awesome.
boss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of City Council. My name is Sharice Montgomery, and I'm a senior project manager in facilities. My walk-up song was supposed to be Rock Around the Clock, since I've been working on safety and justice for a while. But I'm honored to be presenting tonight the public buildings portion and facilities. Maintaining essential operations across our city's infrastructure requires more than routine maintenance. It demands a comprehensive, accountable governance structure that ensures strategic alignment, operational reliability, and fiscal responsibility. At times, you may feel the impact of our work. No air conditioning, doors that don't shut, being directed to alternative entrances, but it's more than that. Our work supports the standardization maintenance protocols across all of our city facilities. We continue our asset lifecycle management based upon the condition, criticality, and risks of a variety of operations, from HVAC to roofing and more. We perform preventative maintenance that helps to reduce failures and unplanned cost. It goes beyond reactive repairs. It's proactive, data-driven, and a risk-aware approach that has extended the life cycle of our city facilities. Our central oversight leads us to investigate our working systems and see where there may be potential risks and better solutions. Our facility team also supports special projects that represent significant long-term investments in the city's physical infrastructure, ranging from the construction of new facilities like the fire departments and the U Creek Golf Course Maintenance Facility, to the major rehabilitation of critical assets like the Safety and Justice Center. These projects are often complex, high cost, and highly visible, making effective governance not only an important issue, but essential. Cities, like buildings, are only as strong as the foundations they are built upon. Our facility team supports the foundation of City Council's core services priority. When facilities are well managed, essential operations are uninterrupted. When essential operations are uninterrupted, City Council goals are achievable. And when City Council goals are achieved, our community's trust is strengthened. As you may have guessed, our infrastructure is aging. A significant portion of our city buildings were constructed decades ago and now have exceeded their operational life cycle. As a result, they often lack the efficiency, safety standards, technological capabilities required to meet the current service demands. Our facilities have repeatedly concealed unknown or hidden conditions, specifically structural deficiencies, most often caused by water, that have been discovered during our facility assessments and rehabilitation work. These include existing conditions not as detailed in as-built drawings, failed waterproofing and sealants, altered methods of construction, and poor original workmanship. Identifying and addressing these issues has significantly impacted project timelines and budgets. The cost of construction materials and skilled labor continues to be highly unpredictable, driven by global supply chain disruptions, inflation, and regional skilled workforce shortages. These market fluctuations continue to result in substantial cost increases for repairs, renovations, rehabilitations, and even new construction. This volatility makes long-term capital planning more complex and constrain original budget estimates. To effectively plan and allocate resources over the next 5 years, projects are prioritized based upon the combination of critical factors. This structured approach ensures that the city can responsibly manage risk, address urgent needs, and ensure the continued functionality, safety, and efficiency of our public facilities. It is critical to invest in our infrastructure, upgrades, proactive maintenance, and comprehensive condition assessments. We continue to navigate the demands of our city facilities. I'd now like to share a video that was actually taken during the demolition of the Safety and Justice Clock Tower while I give the highlights. After 2 years of intensive structural rehabilitation, the Safety and Justice Center now meets the required establishment requirements for the essential facility category of the International Building Code, a portion of the code that didn't exist when the facility was originally built. Last summer, crews began securing the building for demolition, and that demo work is now anticipated to be done next month. As you know, the project has experienced some delays. Our main challenge has been due to the existing conditions not as detailed in the as-built drawings, poor workmanship, and the negative impacts of water infiltrating the building envelope. We are excited for the structural build-back portion of the project that is scheduled to begin later this year. The design restores the structural integrity of the building, provides increased security, addresses the needs for additional offices and meeting spaces, along with establishing other key essential facility building systems. We are confident that the finished product will deliver long-term value and align with the broader strategic objectives and functionality of our public safety department. Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would just suggest an alternate entrance song of Safety Dance. So.
That's a great one, thanks.
The one thing so for the council members that have been here, from this building through this, it has been an ongoing process. We have spent in excess of $20 million, probably, on work that didn't add any capacity. It was stabilizing foundation, so this building that we're in isn't red tagged. The same work in the library, and when Charisse talks about the issues that we're seeing, it was common. And so what we've learned through this is the importance of ongoing maintenance. And we're trying right now to pivot ourselves as we're doing this. When we started this, you heard talk about sinking funds and things like that in terms of staying on top of this, because this is a prime example of not investing your dollars to preserve your buildings, what it actually means. And to put it in framework when we talk about other things we want to do. there was potentially debt capacity to do other projects. We couldn't use that debt capacity for other projects because we had to use it to rehabilitate and stabilize the buildings that we have. So one of the things that we're trying to do in all of this is really flip the switch in the direction that we're heading, so that 50 years from now, someone's not dealing with the same issue that we were dealing with on these buildings. And, so that's kind of how we're approaching this. So when we're spending money on roofing and boilers and air conditions and flooring, it is work that's important, because that's what creates the problem that you realize down the road. So I guess the key message I want you all to take away is we're in the process of transitioning this to a more proactive approach to maintaining our facilities.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I remember when the library, they were just pulling up rug to change the carpet and then realizing those foundational cracks, and same thing with the public safety bill. And it all happened at the same time. It was boom, boom, boom. So then, a lot of these projects, and they're necessary, but they're not pretty. They're not like out there and just very showy, but they're things that need to be done. So thank you for looking at it from that different lens of proactive. So I appreciate
Definitely.
that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
What's next on the list? Parks and Rec?
Can you guess what my theme song would have been? The Parks and Rec theme song.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I feel like I know you all so much better now. We gotta
Good
do this
evening,
every week.
Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring and council members. My name is Stephanie Cooper. I'm the manager of Parks and Trails Development for the city. So as you know, we're a new department of Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, but we share one goal, and that's to keep Longmont's parks safe, clean, and welcoming by taking care of what we have, fixing what is aging, and planning ahead. This helps us use resources wisely, support growing neighborhoods, and make sure every park continues to be a strong part of its community. This budget that we're proposing moves us forward on council priorities: equity, safety, and sustainability, by renewing aging park infrastructure and expanding access to parks and recreation where it's needed most. To maximize the value of the funds that we do have, we're using a best value approach with beneficial projects to deliver parks that are high quality, efficient, and sustainable. Unlike traditional low bid methods, this approach selects teams based on expertise, cost, and risk, so we get better outcomes and fewer delays and change orders. This delivery approach has already proven to be successful. We've bundled multiple park projects and saved nearly $1 million to date in contract costs. We've also found that projects in the $1 million and above range hit a sort of sweet spot. They're large enough to attract strong competitive proposals, but still manageable for city staff to oversee efficiently. This method helps us stretch funding, reduce risk, and deliver better parks for the community. Sandstone Ranch is one of Longmont's most iconic and heavily used community parks. To meet growing demand for youth sports, we are proposing to move forward with Phase 4 of the Sandstone Ranch Master Plan, which will complete the park's original vision. This phase will add 4 new ball fields along with essential amenities like restrooms, shelters, and associated infrastructure, helping us meet the growing demand for youth sports in Longmont. The existing fourplex of ball fields at Sandstone Ranch was built nearly 20 years ago. This reinvestment will expand capacity and ensure the park continues to serve our growing community well into the future. To move forward efficiently and responsibly, we propose using the best value design-build approach. This method will allow us to hire a qualified team to both design and construct the project, streamline our process, reduce delays, deliver the best outcomes within available funding. This is a smart investment that supports healthy communities, active lifestyles, and a park system we can all be proud of. As part of the upcoming CIP, we are proposing continued investment in the park renewal program. This is a strategic initiative that ensures Longmont's parks remain safe, functional, and welcoming for all residents. Many of our parks are now decades old. Their infrastructure, such as playgrounds, irrigation systems, shelters, and sports courts, have aged beyond their intended life cycles. Without timely reinvestment, to Harold's point previous on other facilities, these assets become more expensive to maintain, less safe for users, and less equitable in terms of access and quality across the neighborhoods. That's why our renewal strategy is guided by 3 guiding principles. Asset lifecycle. We prioritize the parks where the infrastructure is at or beyond its expected lifespan. Condition assessments. We use data to identify where safety, accessibility, or usability is compromised. And park utilization. We focus on parks that serve high volumes of residents or fill critical gaps in underserved areas. This approach allows us to extend the longevity of our park system. It helps us improve equity by reinvesting in older parks across all parts of the city. It reduces long-term maintenance costs by replacing failing infrastructure before it becomes a liability. It ensures park health by upgrading irrigation, drainage, and sustainable landscaping systems. By usually using this data-driven life cycle-based renewal program, we're not just fixing what's broken, we're planning for a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable park system that will serve Longmont for generations to come. Clark Centennial. Well, this is a vital community space for Longmont's East Side. It's where families gather, kids play, neighbors connect. But many of the park's features, like the ball fields, are nearly 30 years old and showing their age. To keep the park safe, fun, and welcoming, we need to invest in thoughtful improvements. This starts with hiring a design and engineering team to assess the park's current condition. From there, we will create a phased plan that spreads upgrades out over several years, making it easier to align with available funding. This approach ensures safer, more enjoyable spaces for family and youth, a well-maintained park that continues to serve thousands of residents, smart, sustainable investment in one of our city's most valued public spaces. We need to make sure Clark Centennial Park remains a place our community can be proud of today and for generations to come. And that wraps up my slides. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you for the overview of the parks improvements there. Councilmember Yarbrough and I recently met with a community member, and there are a few who are advocating for more skate park infrastructure. And I wanted to know, when we're thinking about some of the different community park enhancements, one of the things that the folks we met with talked about were not necessarily a full revamp. I mean, that was ideal, but also just more like tactical skate park or skating kind of infrastructure that's kind of multi-purpose. And so I'm wondering if that is at all factored into the types of equipment that are either could be considered or like are part of that. For a very classic example being like a bench that is made of a material that is both conducive to people sitting on and, when people aren't sitting there, obviously also used for a skate infrastructure.
Sure. Well, I think with the, specifically like the Clark Centennial project or other projects we're doing renewals, we do engage the public to get input during those early design stages. Clark Centennial is a good example because it is a multi-phase project. It's so big it cannot be funded by any single year. So those types of amenities that would hopefully be presented to us in public engagement through surveys and whatnot, we could gather that feedback from the community to see what's most important to them.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Christ.
Thank you for the lovely pictures of all the parks. When you opened up the Fox Creek Park,
Fox Meadows.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Fox Meadows,
Yeah.
over by Fox Creek. Yeah. We were asked by someone that lived in the neighborhood about maintenance of the parks and where that funding comes from. And I thought it might be nice to generally explain where the money comes from, the revenue to create a park, and where it comes from to maintain a park.
Sure. So for a new park, that's a development fee that comes from the Park Improvement Fund. So that's a portion of all new development to contribute to the growth of our park system. For the maintenance, that comes from a couple sources, one being the Park and Greenway Maintenance Fund, which is a fee in your utility bill each month. Currently, that rate is $2 per unit per month. In addition, the operations team pulls money from Conservation Trust, which is Colorado Lottery, and then some of their equipment and salaries are from general fund. But we really do rely on that park and greenway maintenance fee to help support the maintenance of these projects.
Great. Thanks for explaining that.
Yep.
To your question, that is one of the areas that we highlighted in this budget when we're looking out and when we're looking into out years. The lack of growth in the general fund is really an area that's impacting our O&M and what we need to do on the park system. And so I think we flagged that for you all to say, this is something we're paying really close attention to, because we've got to figure out how we ensure that we're putting the right operational dollars in to maintain the parks. It's just been unfortunate that we've had 2 to 3 bad budget years. It hasn't allowed us to do it, but keeping a very close eye on this, because we need to make some expansion to our operations and maintenance group.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sanitation.
You want me to break?
Do you need a break? Oh, we can take a break. Yeah, let's take a break. Okay, let's go ahead and come back together. Our 5 minutes are up. It's still up.
I'm jumping in front of you. Not because I have a walk-up song, but we have 3 for Chris. But that's
Okay.
So, Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager, I just wanted to clarify something you had said at the
Yes.
beginning of the meeting about not finding when you're supposed to compost in your Waste Wizard app. I
Yes.
thought you asked me a different question.
Okay.
If you're subscribing to composting, you should indeed see when your compost will be picked up in the Waste Wizard app. And if that's not happening, please let me know. We'll take
Okay.
a look into yours.
Yeah, and if that's out there in the public, in the ethos, if you have the app, the Longmont Waste Wizard app, that shows you the weeks that you get recycling and trash. So 1 week will be recycled trash, the following week would be composting trash.
Right.
I do have composting, but now compost has just been taken off the list.
Yeah. So I checked Becky's, and her Waste Wizard does show that,
Okay.
that it has it in the rotation. So if yours
So-
doesn't, please let us know. Feel free to call the call
Yes.
center, 303-651-8416.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now, Chris.
Now back to business.
Cry Me a River? No?
I was thinking Billy Joel, River of Dreams.
River of Dreams. Ah, there you go.
Let's see, so are we ready to go, or do we want to wait a second?
Well, we lost somebody. It's like we have squirrels over here.
Hit me up on the mic.
Okay, well, yeah. Oh my gosh.
So hopefully we walk home before the middle of the night.
Perfect. Great, thank you. Now you may begin. Got the silliness out.
All right, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I'm Chris Uffer, Assistant Director of Water and Waste. I have to apologize up front. I have 3 of these funds to cover tonight, so we'll try and get through them as quickly as we can. But thankfully, Harold's covered most of water already, so we're good. So tonight, I want to talk about our water and waste department, and we have the 3 funds that support that department. There's the sanitation fund, the sewer fund, and the water fund. And so there's some commonalities between all of them, but we'll go through them each individually. So, let's see, I think, there we go. And we'll start with our sanitation fund. Tonight we don't have any CIP to cover because this year we don't have any CIP projects, but we'll talk about budget. Being that our waste services division is in our water and waste department, we have that overall mission that aligns with council goals to deliver reliable and efficient waste services. And one of our main goals is to increase diversion from landfills. And I can say tonight that I got some preliminary numbers that it looks like working with our partners in sustainability, implementing our URO, our Universal Recycling Ordinance, that traditionally with just residential, we've been around 35% diversion. Looks like we're going to be upwards of 50% diversion in this coming year. So we'll bring those numbers back to you at the end of the year when they're finalized. Like I said, we fall within council's priorities, being a core service, maintaining the health, welfare, and safety of the community, and then also a large goal of reaching our sustainability goals for diversion, as well as implementing the CNG trucks that we utilize to pick up trash. So working into that equity, safety, and sustainability. This budget that we're presenting to you for next year is showing a 7% decrease from previous years. We're about $11 million. And being that we're an enterprise fund, we are being funded through our sanitation rates, which is collected through our utility billing. And then we also have some minor fees that are collected through development. So we will talk through some of these strategic budget reductions that we're looking at. I'll go to the next slide. This is the list that you'll see in the budget that you've been presented. Some of the things that we've looked at for reductions because we're not meeting our minimum requirements for an enterprise fund, keeping that fund whole. We're looking at decreasing the amount of carts that we purchase this next coming year. We are cutting out any of our extra that we had in our tipping fees to allow for expansion of those. We're looking at taking out probably styrofoam from our recycling center, and the biggest one that's on there is the leaf and branch collection. So all of these add up to about $735,000, and really they're intended to show a balanced budget. But we will be looking as we move forward. We've brought before you a rate analysis, and as if that gets adopted, that will change the outlook for the sanitation fund. In our budget, we're showing that 100% of this is operating, and you can see in the column that's the 26 budget that we look at bringing in about $9.9 million, and our total operating expense is 11, so we're cutting into our fund balance. And if we do the rate adjustment, if that's approved, that will increase our revenues to around $11 million. We would come back to council and appropriate additional funds to bring all of our services back up to the same level that we have this year, which then our total expenses would be about $12 million. So we'd still be cutting somewhat into our reserves. And you can see that here as we look at the total budget summary over the last 5 years. In 2020, our reserve was fairly low, and we were building it up from 21 to 22 in order to do a CIP project for expansion of our building out at 110 Martin Street. And in 2023, we got the news that that expansion was much more expensive than we anticipated, plus the cost of our trucks had increased substantially. So we cut out all of our CIP, and the reduction in 2024 is how much we spent into our fund balance. And then subsequently in 2025, we're still spending down our fund balance. And then in 26, you can see that we're leveling out. Either we will be slightly above our reserve requirement, or if we move forward with that rate adjustment, we are anticipating that we start growing that reserve again.
So I'm going to jump in real quick to make sure we're clear on what we're communicating. Council gave us direction in terms of the rate conversations, but because of the requirement that we have to give you a balanced budget, we had to give you a budget with that list that we said, if we don't have a rate increase, this is what we're going to have to cut. So it's not that we're not listening to council's direction, it's a timing issue on when we had to present the budget and when it was balanced versus when the rate conversation is going to occur. We are bringing the rates that you all directed us to bring back, and then if council approves those rates, then we'll go back to what we had before. So it's a bit of a timing issue for us in this budget, and I just didn't want people to go, oh, they're just automatically cutting this. We're not. It's connected to the rate conversation.
Great, thank you. So obviously challenges and the ways that we're mitigating those is we have not had a rate increase in over 8 years. But one thing I want to mention too is that fund balance was bolstered by other outside funds that we can't always count on. So there was oil and gas revenues that came in, and then there was also RIN credits that we've been collecting using our CNG vehicles. And looks like those RIN credits are going to change. We can't count on those, and oil and gas revenues are going to be decreasing over time. But we also had increased vehicle costs. Our standard truck not too long ago was under $500,000, and now they're over $600,000 to get one vehicle. Then we also have increasing tipping fees, as we've talked about before, for compost and recycle and our regular trash dumping at the landfill. But as we've said, to meet those constraints, we've proposed reductions where we can, where it would least impact citizens, but if we can get a rate increase, that will bring those all back with an appropriation later in the year. So some of the key things that we've invested in, obviously, is our CNG trucks. We've also expanded some of the uses out at our Longmont Recycle Center, collecting from residents and allowing commercial to drop off at the front end of the recycle center. And then also leveraging outside agencies to help us with different things, to provide our citizens greater services in the long run and to increase our diversion rates. So our community impact just overall is the health and cleanliness of the community, as well as meeting our environmental sustainability goals, and then also promoting our equity and access to all of our services. And with that, that completes the sanitary sewer portion, or sorry, sanitation portion. If you have any questions, or I can just keep going through all three. The other two. Keep going?
Keep going.
All right. So that brings us to the sewer fund. And the sewer fund also is an enterprise fund, so we get revenue in the same manner as sanitation through the fees that we charge for development, and majority comes through our rates and utility bills. And I'm on the wrong slide. But we're here to deliver excellent and affordable water. That's our main goal, meeting all regulations. And just for a point of information, that on average that we are treating over 7 million gallons a day through our wastewater treatment plant, which creates reusable energy and resources such as, what am I trying to say? Well, I can't think of the word right now, sorry. But our main goal is the clean water that we discharge back into the St. Vrain. So the resources that we're utilizing, we're actually cleaning and putting back into the environment. Yes, renewable natural gas and biosolids. That's the thing I was thinking of, to reapply in farming. So again, sewer is a core service, and with a focus on sustainability, equity, and safety of the community. Our budget this year is $22 million. It is a 3% decrease, and this is really more of a factor that we're in kind of an interim term for the sewer and water funds, in that we have completed some major projects. We are looking at we are undertaking a master plan to help point us to the CIP and other projects that we need to move forward with in the coming years, but we don't have any large projects this year proposed. Again, I said our revenue sources are the same for any enterprise fund. We also go out to a vote of the people for bonds when that's necessary, and we are investing in rehabilitation, treatment technologies that reduce our costs and improve levels of service, and regulatory compliance is the big one for sanitary sewer. As you can see, our budget is broken up into 3 basic categories of operating, CIP, and then also debt service to service those bonds that we've had in the past. We are expecting $22 million of revenue this next year, and our expenses are a little less than that at 22.2, so we're building our reserve as we go. And again, looking at the past history, in 2021 and 22, we were building our reserve with the anticipation of going to an election for a bond for our digester, which is a major project out at the wastewater plant, would be a $30 to $40 million project. After doing a lot of analysis and looking at the way that the markets had gone, we found that we could continue to operate and move that project out. So it is not shown in our 5-year CIP at this point in time. And as you'll see, Just operating costs have increased, so from 24 to 25, we have lowered our total fund balance, but holding it steady into 26. Some of our CIP projects that we are undertaking, SWR 53 sewer rehab is one that we do every year. That is part of our asset management. We have several miles of pipe that include clay pipes that are reaching the end of their life. And in order to rehab those, we've instituted a lot of trenchless technologies. That way that we can go in without cutting the street, go into the manholes, run a new liner through, basically create a new pipe inside the pipe. This cuts down on the time and is about half the cost of actually cutting up the street and putting in new infrastructure. So 26 to 30, we're spending around $1.5 to $2.5 million a year.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt. We do have a question. I
Oh,
imagine
yeah,
that
go
it's regard to this one. So I'm going to go ahead. Councilmember McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm just wondering on that pipe rehabilitation, what's the lifespan of that tubing?
So there's lots of different types of in situ relining, but the majority of them have a 75 to 100 year lifespan.
Wow. So is that the thing that it's like it?
So the one that we
describe that a
do
little
most
bit?
often is called a CIPP, cast in place pipe, which is a impregnated sock. It has a goo in it that they run through there, fill it full of air, it expands out to the edges of the pipe, and you can cure them in a lot of different ways. You can be hot water, it could be steam. Most often we use UV light to cure those. So by going in and doing that, what's left after it's cured is stronger than the hose pipe it was originally.
So is that also that clay pipe, is that the pipe that's running between some houses in the street?
So we have the mains, and some of our mains are clay pipe. So I think our oldest pipe right now is 1923-24 that we still have in service. So clay pipe can last a long time if it's in the right condition, but a lot of other clay pipe, as the ground moves, breaks up, and we got to replace it. But up until, I want to say 65, 70, that's when we stopped using clay pipe and went mostly to PVC.
So when somebody has a clay pipe between their house and the street.
Oh, for a service line?
Yeah.
Yep.
They would fix it like that?
Yes,
Because
they
there's
can.
a lot of things out there where somebody's coming out and saying, "Hey, we can inspect your pipe at there," and then they inevitably do find some sort of root problem or
Right.
some sort of thing like that.
Certainly, yes. So that is one option. There are many companies that come out and do linings of sewers, mains. One of the problems with 4-inch and small pipe is that if it has too many defects in it, if it's crushed and they can't get through it, they have to do point repairs. So there may be some additional expenses in doing that, but generally less expensive than digging and replacing.
And how well, like penetrable is this because of, like a root? Would it still be able to get?
So the intent is with relining that you have one solid service line now without any joints, and really it's from the clean out at the house all the way to the main. So trees should not be penetrating into that service line.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Go ahead. Go ahead and continue.
All right. The second CIP project we want to talk about was Sewer 159, the biogas treatment improvements. The gas that's coming from our sewer plant has hydrogen sulfide in it, which is not a good substance to be running through your trucks. So we have to clean and polish the gas. We have a current process right now that is somewhat labor intensive, and we have received a grant in order to improve our removal process that will also reduce our operational costs by an estimated $100,000 per year. So
that's a good project. Not a huge project that we're doing, but a good project to show the things that are happening out there. So sewer fund, investments into the community, and changes that are coming up. Our biggest one is the anaerobic digester, which I talked about before, that we've pushed out a few years. That will give us extra capacity, will bolster our biogas productions, and improve our resiliency overall. And then also I just want to mention again that we are undertaking the master plan now, which will help us in the near future with regulation changes. Some of those are temperature, going back into the stream, and nitrate. Well, we've done the nitrate phosphorus removal was the latest project that we had just completed as well, but looking at other needs in the future. So overall impact to the community, again, we're keeping a clean, safe, healthy environment for the residents. We are doing a lot of resource recovery, and then we are looking also at the possibility of installing wetlands adjacent to the plant to improve temperature and nutrient removal, which would improve the riparian ecosystem along St. Vrain as well.
Okay. And then we have a question here, so I'm going to interrupt for just
Yes.
a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chris, could we go back to the previous slide for a second?
You bet.
You mentioned the additional anaerobic digester there, and I was just curious if that is going to create a surplus of biogas or RNG that will do we have a need for all of that, or will we sell it? Like, what are we going to do with the additional biogas that's produced?
So I'll give you the simple answer, but John Gage is here if you need something more
Fair enough.
involved. Did you want to? So,
what song does John want?
We Are the Champions. The digester will produce additional biogas, but we anticipate that we're going to have greater need in the future as our waste services expand. So right now we have the ability to service 3 to 4 more trucks, but we may need additional in the future. So I don't think that we're going to have an excess that we'd have the opportunity to sell.
So we'd still be using that in-house for our own fuel sort of needs.
Yep.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, I think that was, just challenges and mitigations for the sewer fund. Obviously, regulatory, the state can change things for us. We are permitted through the state, and that is coming up in the future, not as soon as we had thought. We thought 2027, but the state has pushed that out further, so we have a little more time. Looking again at that bond funding for the digester, and then finishing the master plan as well. So, and I think that's the last slide there. Yep.
So Chris, before you go on, I think one of the things that they really highlighted in this that you're seeing as a theme across all of these presentations is the one thing that staff is doing is really pushing the envelope to ask questions. Just because we've been doing it this way, do we need to continue doing it this way? What's the most efficient and effective way to do it? And they're considering things like productivity improvement, cost reduction, cost avoidance, as they're looking at these projects. That, you know, the one thing that's been certain is that if nothing changed, it would cost us more to do what we did last year, next year. It cost us more this year than it did last year. And so what they're doing with all of this work is really pulling in the cost impacts that we're seeing from inflation and other aspects, and minimizing some of the need to have a potentially larger rate increase as they're finding these efficiencies. And you kind of see some of it here, but if you think about what we talked about in parks and what we're talking about in buildings, that's a constant theme, is really evaluating what we're doing, how we're doing it, are we doing it in the most efficient, effective way, what technologies are out there, and leaning into that work even though it's harder work. But what that means is we're pulling in kind of our need for funding by doing this work.
And we're not foregoing anything, you know, so in a few years from now, we're dealing with like the city's public safety building.
No,
Yeah.
that's front and center, is
Okay.
to not forego anything, but do it in the best way we possibly can so that we have longer life expectancies, lower cost of capital, and really pushing it. And they've done a really good job across the entire, that's what we were
Yeah.
hoping you see in the
Yes,
presentation.
yeah.
Is that theme. This was a good part to kind of bring it out, to say this is what everybody's doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So moving on to water, again, our mission is to deliver excellent and affordable water services that enhance quality of life for the citizens of Longmont. And just a quick fact that in 2024, we delivered over 5 billion gallons of water through our distribution system, and we're on pace to send that much more through this year too. For council priorities, again, this is a core service, and we focus again on equity, safety, and sustainability as we move forward with all of our projects. The budget here is $46 million, which is 15% increase from 2025. Being that we're an enterprise fund, again, we get most of our money through our utility bills. Development fees are a minor portion of our income, and then when we need voter-approved bond funding. This year, we're looking at water infrastructure and reducing operational costs where we can, improving levels of service, and ensuring reliable drinking water. So again, in 26, our charges for service will be getting about 35 million, we're estimating. From other revenues, we'll get about 2 million for a total of 37 to 38 million, and our expenses are going to be 46 million, spread across operating, CIP, and debt service. So we will be lowering our overall fund again this year. This budget summary is a little bit different in that we were trying to show what we've been doing with our bond funding, and we've touched on that a little bit already. 2020 was when voters approved the bond. 2021, we spent received $50 million for the bond out of the $80 million that was approved. In 2022, we were designing Nelson Flanders and moving forward. 2023, we found out that Nelson Flanders was going to be almost twice as much as we thought it was going to be. So it shifted gears and started utilizing that bond funding for resilience and redundancy at Nelson Flanders, so doing smaller projects. And then we spent a small portion of those bonds to finish up Price Park Tank that was completed in 2024 and online 25. And now we've moved the remainder of that bond funding to Montgomery Tank, which is just about completed the design process. We're in the permitting process with Boulder County and anticipate starting end of the year or first quarter of next year on construction of that project. So again, the impact that the water fund has on the community, providing a good quality water and protecting our source waters so that our community can thrive. We maintain reliable water resources, starting at our upper reservoirs at Button Rock and all the way down through the city. We'll touch on the replacing of the cast iron pipe in our CIP as we move forward here. Challenges that we always face in any of our utilities are centered around capacity, resilience, and asset management. And they're actually the mitigation for those issues as well. If we're creating a resilient system and maintaining our assets that maintains our capacity, and like I said, we're going through a master plan process at this point in time to see when capacity is going to become an issue. Right now, today, we're not having capacity issues with our water system, but that could change in the near future. So we're trying to pinpoint what that looks like as we move forward with our master plan. And then resiliency, we're doing redundant projects at all of our plants, and then looking at our distribution system as well, as to make sure that if something were to fail, how could we continue to serve the community? And that leads into our asset management as well. So we'll talk about Water 66. That's our annual asset management program. We've got over 450 miles of water pipe in the city. 60 miles of that is cast iron pipe that was installed generally 40 to 50 years ago. So it's reaching the end of its life. And so we've put into this year's CIP $7 to $8 million per year to start impacting that. But that only gets us 2 to 3 miles a year of replacement. We are always looking at other ways and other technologies of how we can improve our pipeline replacements. We just haven't found a CIPP product that really meets the need. So this is the traditional cutting the street and replacing the line. So, and as has been mentioned before, we're always coordinating with transportation and the other departments so that we can get in ahead of them and get our water lines replaced when we have major projects. Another one we wanted to touch on today was Water 173, which is raw water irrigation and park pond improvements. The scope of this is fairly large, but in this next year, we're going to be looking at our diversion structures that come off of ditches and supply water to our parks and schools for raw water irrigation. Some of these structures have been around for 100 years and are in dire need of some TLC. So we can continue to deliver raw water. And by delivering raw water to these schools and parks, that is saving our water from butt and rock that we can put through our plant and increase our water supply overall. So between 26 and 27, we have about $4 million that we're spending on those. And then Water 181 is our raw water transmission and rehab improvements. Again, this overall project has a larger scope, but in 2026, we're really focusing on the Upper St. Vrain supply line that runs from Longmont Reservoir down to the treatment plant. And if you can see in the pictures there, this steel pipe was installed in 1946. It replaced an old concrete line that was installed in the 20s. And it is literally hanging off the side of a mountain. So we've had a few places where we've had slides or exposures of the pipe, and we've had to go in and use some very innovative techniques to be able to protect that pipe and keep water flowing. And that was the end of water. If you have any questions, or I can turn it over to storm drainage.
Okay, Councilmember Christ.
Thank you, Mr. Heffer.
Certainly.
So just to clarify, have we issued all the bonds for our, or we still have a little more, yes?
Right. The original approval was for 80 million. We sold 50 million, and we still have 30 million approved that we could sell.
Okay. Okay.
For water.
And how long do you think you'll hold on to those? Or are you waiting for your optimum moment to issue them?
That's a good question, and I'm hoping that our master plan will help us understand how and when we need to do those. And if I'm betting we're going to need a little bit more than the 30 million that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you stole my song. That wasn't my song.
It was the playoff music.
Ah.
What was your song?
Danger Zone. Ah.
Danger Zone.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Michael Faring, City Council members. I am Jim Angstadt, Director of Engineering Services. My lead-in song was Danger Zone because danger is my middle name. We're here tonight to talk a little bit about storm drainage. So basically, I guess I'm supposed to run the show here. You can see our mission. It is comprised of two main components. We do look to maintain and improve the existing storm drainage system. We are also have a water quality component and our responsibility to protect and maintain our quality of our streams, rivers, and other vital water resources. Core priorities, Storm Drainage Fund does fall under core services. We also, by protecting property, people, and infrastructure, fall under equity, safety, and sustainability. And I also wanted to highlight transportation as well as one of those council priorities. The primary, or one of the first initial components of any storm drainage system is part of your roadway. To help maintain transportation through the system, we need to make sure our roads drain adequately. Budget for 2026, a little shy of $15 million. It's about an 8% increase from last year, or this year, excuse me. Revenues for storm drainage come from our utility bills. There is a fee, associated storm system development fees, along with we do occasionally get some rather large grants. Focusing on RSVP is what we're looking at currently. And then some of our strategic investments moving forward are the upgrades of the existing system, as well as improvements to the St. Vrain Channel. Budget is pretty much divided between our operating, our CIP, and then there is some debt service as well. We're looking, as I indicated, a little shy of $15 million for next year's budget. Budget summary showing our fund balance and the reserve requirement. We have a healthy fund balance that we will be carrying over. We want to continue that as we look to initiate the completion of RSVP in future years. As we anticipate, we're still looking to get grants for that project. If that's not successful, we do have already an approved bond initiative, so we do have a plan for funding the next component of that project. Some of our CIP highlights, number of the projects are supporting the transportation system through additional funding to fund the drainage improvements on those transportation projects. Key component or key project we look at every year is our storm drainage rehab. We will continue that into 26 with a focus on some of the old town areas where, similar to the sanitary system, there is some significant pieces of old clay pipe, mostly undersized in various areas. So we do look to take on some smaller projects that would be improving that system. And then there is one of the bigger highlights is the Resilient St. Vrain project. Budget of about $2 million for 26 will take us into the next component of design. And from previous presentations, the goals of RSVP were to fully restore the Greenway Trail, improve the creek channel to protect people, property, and infrastructure from future flood risks, and we complete that work in an environmentally sensitive way. Main goal is to containment of flood events within the St. Vrain Channel. Currently, status of the project, Army Corps is completing, we're working on their project. Anticipated completion is next summer. Currently, we are designing the next phase, the Hover Reach, to get us to Hover. That is about 30% design plans. So the dollars here are to carry that design through to completion. Community impact involves, as I looked at the transportation system, we want to make sure that as people are moving throughout our city, they have a positive experience. Nothing's worse than driving down 17th Avenue 40 miles an hour and hit a puddle, spraying water everywhere, hydroplaning. So we also look to provide higher levels of protection for people, property, and infrastructure. Some of the challenges, I'm repeating what you've heard earlier tonight, aging infrastructure. The city's got 50 to 60, 70-year-old drainage system in certain areas. Some of the newer areas from the 80s on, systems are pretty sound. Our operations team does inspect our pipes on a regular basis. We coordinate with our operations to run cameras. We are currently working on a asset management plan for our infrastructure. So we're bringing that forward, hopefully tie that up next year. There are some of the other challenges are some changing regulatory environment. Currently, the federal government's getting away from issuing water wetlands permitting. The state's taking that on. We're seeing some challenging with that, mostly around fees. Federal government didn't charge anything for them. The state is looking to do that. And then the traditional one, we see a lot of fluctuations in costs, rising prices for manpower and materials. So we're adjusting to those by ongoing investment, continuous investment in that infrastructure. Our DRN 21, RSVP, we are continuing each year to do improvements and standard maintenance. We are currently working on an update to our storm drainage criteria manual that was in this year's operating budget. We're continuing to work on that. We'll be bringing that forward hopefully early next year for council approval. And I'll relate a story. When I was starting out in engineering school, early 80s, excuse me, they taught us that water flows downhill. Very important lesson. And I say early 80s because that's the last time our criteria manual was updated. So it's well beyond a need to update that. And then continuous improved planning and project prioritization will help get us over some of those challenges. And that's what I have this evening. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Nope, you were very thorough.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask that.
Oh my gosh.
I meant to say, I confused. I handed out lifesavers for anybody in case I sink this presentation.
Oh.
But I did try to stay afloat and keep my head above water. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I saw what you did there.
I don't think I got a lifesaver over here, but so good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My name is Alden Jenkins. I'm a senior civil engineer. We'll be moving on to transportation next. Similar to storm drainage, it is within the Public Works and Engineering Department as directed by Jim Angstadt. He did ask me to help out for the presentation this evening. So the mission of our department is to provide a network of safe and reliable transportation alternatives for everyone that lives, works, or recreates within Longmont. So the idea is you have opportunity and options to choose which method suits you best. We accomplish that by routinely improving and maintaining our 358 centerline miles of roadways that Longmont has oversight over. And that includes all of the other elements that are associated with that system as well. When we fulfill our department mission, we do advance several of the City Council's priorities. Naturally, a reliable transportation network is a core service. Basic need is to be able to move around town. That's something that everybody needs. In addition, all other core services offered by the city do become difficult to provide if we don't provide a good, reliable transportation network as well. While our transportation network does provide core services, it must do so safely. So for Vision Zero, it is a fundamental consideration for our capital improvement projects and our capital investments. So it is a fundamental goal for those items. As the Vision Zero plan is developed further, it will continue to have a strong influence on those capital projects as well. Lastly, our department's focus on multimodal transportation infrastructure aligns with this council's priority to make the city a more accessible and walkable community, which aligns with the transportation priority. The 2026 Transportation budget is primarily funded by the Street Fund and Transportation Community Investment Fee Fund. Projected revenues for 2026 show an available budget of just over $37 million, which is a 4% decrease from 2025. TCIF is seeing about a 69% increase as well. Revenue sources include taxes, development fees, primarily for the Transportation Community Investment Fee Fund, and support from awarded grants. A theme that you'll hear tonight within this presentation for transportation is really threefold: safety, multimodal access, and asset management are going to be key focus points for not only the projects that we're approving, but the approach we take on those projects.
So real quick, so when we talk about sales and use tax impact to budgets, this is one of those funds where it's front and center in terms of the revenue coming in. So when we said we're holding that flat, that's holding one of the most significant resources they have to fund the work that they're doing in the street fund. And once again, use tax is a primary driver of that.
So moving on to the spread for our budget for 2026, we're about evenly split between our CIP investments and operating budget. When you compare it to 2025, our operating expenditures have increased about 7%, while capital expenses have decreased about 9%. As Harold had mentioned just now, in order to fund these 2026 expenditures, we have a fund balance contribution necessary of about $8.17 million to be able to balance the budget. This leaves about $84,000 in the fund balance for the street fund, which is below the reserve requirement. So the expectation is we'll be using every dollar we're projecting to come in 2026 for our expenditures. So with that funding that we have projected for use in 2026, we have numerous investments in capital projects that we're doing. So buckle up for a second. We have 8 of them. So first of which is the Asphalt Pavement Management Program. This is an annual program that includes several sub-projects, and it is a project or a program that has one of the widest reaches of impacts across the city among many projects. So beyond just asphalt rehabilitation, it does address deficient concrete adjacent to the work being done. So for example, on a street that's being rehabilitated for asphalt, we'll address deficient curb ramps to make them ADA compliant, or any damage to that concrete as well. So additionally, this project does offer great opportunities for implementation of multimodal and Vision Zero elements. Current funding level for 2026 is less than what we see is needed to actually maintain the system. So we are having to stretch those dollars as efficiently and as best we can for what we have available in 2026. The next, Transportation System Management, is a program level project that is our program that addresses the functionality of the transportation system. So for example, it can provide capacity improvements if needed, but generally the focus currently is safety and multimodal improvements, generally on a somewhat smaller scale. It can include neighborhood traffic mitigation in the form of curb extensions and speed tables as well as traffic signal improvements and some small asset management components as well. One large piece of the transportation system management program, though, is the Vision Zero framework, lives within TSM. So all of the funding that is currently allocated being directed towards Vision Zero is currently within this CIP. Anything you wanted to add to that, Jim, or is that? Okay. Boston Avenue Connection Project from Price Street to South Pratt Parkway. This is a new roadway segment that will have a new at-grade crossing at the railroad. Key note about this project is it'll be the primary access route for the future bus rapid transit that's going to be coming to Longmont in early 2028. RTD has indicated that this is going to be one of their critical routes, if not the main critical route they'll be using to come from Boulder to Longmont. So we have a question?
Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So if I'm understanding where these roads are crisscrossing here, is this addressing that? Is it's crossing over to that intersection that has like that two-way stop situation.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Like, kind
It's
of can
sort
pass
of
through.
Yeah, Councilmember Popkin. Yeah, it's sort of a counterintuitive stop scenario at that location right there, where the through traffic doesn't have to stop when generally you'd think it would be stopping. So eastbound Boston moves through up to northbound Price Street or Price Road.
And so then it'll make that fully through, but with Price north to south and Boston east to west with pedestrian, bike, and vehicle
That's
infrastructure.
correct. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
In addition to the bike and pedestrian facilities that are being installed along the segment, this will be a quiet zone compliant crossing as well, and will also include a traffic signal at that location.
Do you have a sense of the estimated timeline for that at this time?
2026. Plan for construction in 2026. Actually, we just recently, within I think the last couple of weeks, received some final regulatory clearance that has been many years coming to be able to move forward with that. So,
Current status of the project is that they are finalizing property acquisition. We did get the final PUC approval, so we are hoping to try to get this out to bid later this year. Before the end of the year, we do have a PUC requirement in their ruling to have it completed by June of next year.
Go get them.
So this one, we talked about it many years ago, but there's not really a good east-west connection on the south side of town. And so what you find is it also adds a lot of traffic to 3rd Street. So if you're thinking about how people are crossing, and then it also pushes a lot of traffic further down to then connecting into 119. So when we talked about it, we were hoping that it actually is a broader community relief route in terms of giving another east-west connection and hopefully pulling some cars off some other streets that we know are problematic.
Yeah.
moving on to the next project, Railroad Quiet Zones. This is a project that will install quiet zone compliant rail conditions at numerous existing crossings throughout Longmont. What that means is that when a train approaches these crossings, once they're quiet zone compliant, they will not have to blow their horn as they approach or pass through the intersection. So really significant quality of life improvement and benefit to the adjacent neighborhoods and community at large. Project is broken up into multiple packages. First package, package 1, is mostly complete with construction. There's still some loose ends to tie up for that particular project, including the 3rd Avenue crossing. The package 2 section of streets is projected to hit construction in the 2nd quarter of 2026, and package 3 is the 2nd quarter of 2027. The next project here is the First and Main Transit Station area improvements. This is a public-private partnership development between the city and a local developer that is at the southwest corner of First Avenue and Main Street. The development itself includes a transit hub and parking garage, as well as a new connection of Kaufman Street from First Avenue to Boston Avenue. The city is managing the design and construction of all of those features, so the transit hub, the garage, and the extension of Kaufman Street. But the development as a whole does include remainder of development area that is essentially going to be no different than typical developments elsewhere in Longmont. For the extension of Kaufman Street, it includes a strong focus of bike and pedestrian-friendly features in the form of a 2-way cycle track on the west side. Land has been acquired for both the roadway and development area, and building demolition is currently ongoing as we speak. Design for the actual extension of Kaufman Street is well underway, with the actual development area, the transit hub, and the garage is actually just getting started, with estimated construction completion of the end of 2027.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We talked about this a little. This is actually less of a street question and more about the design here. We talked about this a little bit last night in the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority meeting, but this is a rendering that is not congruous with any kind of design. We haven't seen formal design renderings yet.
No, we just brought the architect on. I think as we were putting some of these images together, it was related to TOD conversations that we were having. And so, no, we don't. To say it would look like that, we can't say that it will right now.
So this is purely a placeholder
It's
image
just purely
that
a
is grounded
placeholder.
in no specific designs.
No. And, you know, when we talked about the parking garage structure, you know, that's going to be interesting. Where does it sit? What does it serve? You know, to Alden's point in this, to be very clear, the only thing that we control is the parking garage, because we will own and operate that. We are partnering with a private developer, which obviously through planning and those processes we have input, but at the end of the day, the private partner is going to be indicating what they want to build on their property too, and we're trying to sort through those things right now. But we have to start with parking garage.
Sure. To be continued.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continue.
Sure. Related project is the Kaufman Street Busway, also known as the Kaufman Street Mobility Improvements Project. Specifically from First Avenue to Second Avenue, this is a continuation of improvements that are nearing completion north of Second Avenue. Very near and dear to my heart. That's a project that I manage. So it'll be good to see those improvements continue southward. So that is to say that the segment of First to Second Avenue will include protected bike lanes and new sidewalks where none currently exist. Also includes an asset management perspective as well to repair the aging condition of the asphalt roadway. Construction is currently targeted for the second quarter of 2026.
Alden, if you could you provide us the status of the current Kaufman Street project?
Sure. So that project is, I would say, estimated about 90% completion. Actually, today we poured our last section of concrete on the north side of Second Avenue, leaving just the two southwest and southeast corners of Second and Kaufman Street. Looking at completing that project to a construction acceptance status by likely middle of October, maybe November. It really kind of depends on what we're going to be looking at in terms of how quickly we can complete our punch list items. The big news on that project, though, is that we are about 7 months early. So the contract completion, original estimate for the project, had us going through June of 2026. And as I mentioned, we're going to be done here in probably majority the next month to 2 months at the very most. Final project tonight is the Pace Street improvements from 9th Avenue to 17th Avenue. This project includes 3 primary scopes of work, first of which is minor widening to support improved bike infrastructure. There are currently bike lanes on this section of Pace Street, so the intent here is to widen to allow for buffered bike lanes at this location. In addition to that, there are some intersection crossing improvements, pedestrian improvements, as well. In particular, we will be adding flashing beacons, RFBs, you maybe have heard them referred to otherwise, at some locations as well. The third component of the project is an asset management perspective, and that will take care of the fairly poor condition of that asphalt, as well as improve some drainage deficiencies along that corridor. Also expected construction in that project in 2026, so 2026 is going to be a very busy year. All right, so with all of those projects, in terms of the community impact, this budget naturally supports connectivity among Longmont's residents and those that visit Longmont. Certainly an obvious impact of maintaining that system, but the benefit to the community really can't be understated. Perhaps a less evident impact, but really no less critical, is that a flexible transportation system promotes upward social mobility within our community. So there really is no single mode of transportation that necessarily works for everyone. So having options for walking, biking, driving, or public transit can help promote flexibility in the system and supports a diverse community as well. Lastly, as safety and multimodal elements come online, the actual experience level of service of users on Longmont's transportation system will increase, and therefore the users' perceived satisfaction of the system also increases. So I think Jim is fond of saying that there are experienced levels of service and then perceived levels of service. So the hope here is that these projects will help increase a positive perceived level of experience.
So do we have any? Yep, we do. Okay. Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, kudos on the early timeline, or hopeful early timeline on Kaufman. We were in a Senior Citizens Advisory Board meeting, I want to say a month and a half ago, and talking about the different kind of curb cut designs and the different access and how that kind of changes the experience for drivers. And people were commenting on that, and I think at one point there was a click of like, oh, it's making it more difficult to balance out the transportation system and make it a little bit more fair to all types of users on that. And so that started to click, and people were like, oh, that's why that was designed that way. So I think people are starting to see that, especially as the intersections start to open up, and just want to give you and the team a huge shout out there. The other question I had, you didn't present on this project, but it's under the partially funded CIP section. I think I gave you a heads up on this one. This is the Nelson Road improvements from Grandview Meadows Drive all the way to Hover Street. And I just wanted to ask how that was determined to be one of the partially funded projects as we get here. And I think it's probably in design stage based on the numbers, but if you could elaborate a little bit more. And part of where I'm coming from on that is back in March, we discussed the transportation mobility plan that broke down kind of the different short, medium, and long-term priorities for different protected bike lanes and other intersection improvements and pedestrian infrastructure. And I saw part of that under short-term and part of that under medium-term. And so I'm just curious why that's coming up now as kind of this block investment.
Councilmember Popkin, the project you're referring to is TRP 123 is noted as partially funded in the Transportation Community Investment Fee Fund. So there are limits to what we can utilize those dollars for. One of them is major on arterial roadways for capacity improvements. So that project has also been in our budget for a number of years. And as we started looking at it, as we started planning the budget in that earlier, last year we started identifying that there's significant amounts of development along that corridor. So we're seeing an increase in the need to take a look at it. And so what we're focusing on is basically a conceptual, some type of conceptual design to see what we exactly would like to do. Do we want to widen the roadway out more, or do we want to make it a more of a multimodal corridor? A 3-lane section, which is what it is today, can carry a lot of cars. The challenge will be accessing that corridor during peak hours. There's more delays for people who want to access the corridor. Access management can solve that problem by you put a median down the middle of the road and make everybody take a right in, right out, except at signalized intersections. So we want to look at the corridor. Sure. That's really what was driving it. And we've been looking at it for a number of years, well before we started looking at the TMP.
Got it. So there's just a bit of a sequencing situation here. But
exactly.
Overall, the intention of having this start to be funded is in response to some of the development pressures that are happening.
That's what we were looking at.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. And for looking into it.
Okay, Councilmember Christ.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, let me say that the streets are looking beautiful. You've really done a great job this summer, resurfacing, and everybody's very pleased with that. I do have a question about the ramps that are at the end of sidewalks when you go to cross the street, which I think are the ADA to provide accessibility. But they have the red pads that are numbly at the end. And I'm wondering, is that for wheelchair usage? Because I've had a few people who have prosthetic legs or feet that say that it's hard for them to use that their ankles don't work on that, their prosthetic ankles.
Councilmember Christ, if I recall correctly, those pads with the contrasting color are in place for visually impaired users of the sidewalk. That is if I recall my ADA correctly, that was the primary need for those, that it is a contrast, an area of a contrasting surface, so they can recognize that they are changing conditions. They're actually entering the roadway. That is my understanding.
Okay. So is there enough space in those zones for people with prosthetic limbs to be able to have room to maneuver also? I know that, that's a catch-22, because if you are sight limited, then you want a wide swath so that before you step off the curb that you're getting into the street. But it seems like if you have a prosthetic limb, you have a hard time stepping off the curb. You need the ramp, but apparently the bubbles there are a problem.
And all I can say is that we're following a standard, national standard from POAG and American with Disabilities Act.
Yeah. Okay. Let's discuss offline sometime.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll put some people on it, start looking at some research and see what we can find.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
All right, just to go ahead and wrap up the presentation this evening, there certainly are some challenges facing Longmont's transportation network. As with many budgets, throughout the presentation you heard, again, the theme of focus on multimodal access, safety, while really not losing sight of what we already have, so asset management. We strive to find a synergy between all of those priorities with these projects where we can, but it certainly can be a challenge to balance all of those with limited funding and an aging network. The good news, though, is that these projects, by their nature, often offer opportunities for us to be able to bring all of those priorities together into a single project. And we certainly do try to leverage those opportunities when we have them. These challenges aren't going to be going away anytime soon, to be sure, so there's inherently a risk of not meeting our goals for asset management in the future. Similar to routine maintenance on your house, the longer you delay maintenance on, say, an aging paint exterior to finally address that, it's just going to be more expensive. And I think the same can be said for Longmont's transportation system. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Becky Doyle, Chief Strategic Integration Officer. My song would be Technologic by Daft Punk because apparently Mr. Roboto led to the breakup of Styx. I get to bring you home here talking about the Technology Services Fund. So we are proposing this year to create a new internal services fund. An internal services fund is a tool that we use when we are providing services to internal city departments. A good example that you may be familiar with is the Fleet Fund, which centralizes our management of fleet resources and then charges the cost of providing those services back out to the departments that use the fleet. Similarly, we're proposing that we establish a technology services fund so that we can centralize our oversight of enterprise level investments in technology. So what that looks like is that as part of the package of ordinances and resolutions that would be brought to you in October, you'd see an ordinance to establish the fund, to create a new chapter in Title IV, which governs our revenue and finance area to create the new fund. We have identified here the expenses that we want to put in there this year, although I will say that this is just sort of our first foray with some of our newer technology investments. And over time, we hope to centralize, some of our existing, staff resources and other expenditures in here so that we have a more full picture of what we're spending across departments and funds. And then finally, we will establish a method to determine what those charges out to the other funds are. In this case, we have used some assumptions about, what these newer investments, how we might have funded them otherwise, which sort of brings up why we're proposing this in the first place, is that, Harold talked a little bit about some of the tools that we have available to us in terms of, revenue enhancement, productivity improvement, cost avoidance, these kinds of things. And technology is a great way to do a lot of those things. And as we found ourselves looking at some of those opportunities, we found that we were not always able to connect the dots across all the pieces of investment that were required across those different groups. So what we're hoping to do here is just paint a bigger picture so that we can both see the investment that we're making now as well as the returns on those investments over time.
Yeah, basically in our conversations, we're bringing systems thinking to technology. And from my perspective, what we're trying to do is control cost, maximize the use of the software systems, and as Becky said, increase productivity. So instead of thinking as technology individually to departments, we're thinking about technology globally from the organization's perspective, and then figuring out what groups fit into that and what is the best approach to minimize the expenses to the organization as a whole.
So for 2026, we are proposing a total of just over $2 million of investment. Some of that is in the form of personnel, a lot of professional services as we're implementing some new things, and then software licensing that we expect to be ongoing in the fund. Those positions are comprised of 4 term limited FTEs related to the Salesforce project. They are listed here if you have any questions. But, essentially, a lot of these are very tied to that initial implementation, and then, may transition into sustaining roles potentially as the project continues.
I want to spend some time on the term limited piece, because when we use term limited positions and we were evaluating, well, what do we need? What was clear is we didn't know what we really needed over time. And so when we're in that case, we actually use term limited positions to get us through the immediate need. And then we'll start understanding what do we really need in the future, so we don't over allocate positions and then we find out we don't need them. So this is a good example of why we do this at times. It's because we know what we need today, but we don't think that's what we're going to need in perpetuity.
A lot of the projects that we're funding in here are things that we've talked about with the council previously. Obviously, we're through our first phase of implementation of CareNet that's built on the Salesforce platform. We're also getting into the thick of the unified customer profile that we're also using Salesforce for. We are expanding the use of Qualtrics. You'll see that come up in a lot of different ways and throughout the services. Surveys, the forms that we're using on the website, those kinds of things. That's become a very broadly used tool. And then I think we've talked a little bit about the Open Counter implementation that will be a companion piece to our Acela permitting software, kind of creating a friendlier user interface for people to be able to better understand licensing and permit requirements and fees. Whoop, missed something. In the future, this is also where we will do the asset management pieces of technology. And again, as I mentioned, really look at those enterprise technology investments. What are those big picture pieces that help us operate better as a city?
So part of what you heard me talk about project management, and if we have some time, we're finished with this, but Becky, I don't know how well it's probably going to be hard to bring it up on this because you're not logged in.
Correct.
But the next time we'll show you the dashboards that we talked about and what we're looking at. But when we look at technology asset management, that's also tied to project management that is also in her area. and linking the project management, so we're all managing projects with one system and one process that then can integrate into Power BI and the other software that then will give the managers a dashboard. It'll give their supervisors, ultimately to me, where I get a dashboard, and then where we envision it is we have a more basic dashboard for council, so that when constituents ask you questions, you can just go and look at it and go, okay, here's where they are, here's what they're doing. And so this is a piece where we're going to continue pulling it together, because what we're finding is that strategic integration can answer many questions that I have and that you all have actually ahead of time, and it's just a matter of seeing what's in the dashboard. So you're seeing the first steps of us integrating the system, and then when we talk about Salesforce and where we're moving, that's ultimately leading to a different platform for the residents of our community to interact with us. And so they can tell us what they're interested in or what they need to know, and we're communicating more directly on what their preferences are versus just this blanket communication of which a lot of people don't care about. And so we're really at that foundational stage of building these systems ultimately to streamline and make the resident experience dealing with this much better, which will even change how they come in and put in complaints. And ultimately our desire is, as they're being handled within departments and they're making the inputs in the system, it's automatically sending emails to the people that put in complaints into the system, versus right now our system doesn't really work that way. And it creates it can become staff intensive in trying to make that communication, fill that communication gap. So that's the long-term vision of where we're heading.
So I'm curious to know, so where would ServiceWorks kind of fall into that? Would it be the asset management piece? But so right now, it doesn't automatically go out to the people that it's supposed to, or what?
So ServiceWorks is a way that we have for the public to
submit,
request
yes.
work of us. Sorry, I'm just for those watching at home. So what the changes that we're kind of suggesting here is that right now those requests are going into basically an email inbox, and then those are translated into the work management systems of the groups that would actually perform the work that's requested. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is to improve automation and sort of close the loop between the system where that request came from, and then, the work goes out and is performed, and then, having that information come back to the requester or to the person who put that in the first place. Because that's the piece that we're missing right now, is that communication back and that loop closing.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Cool. Doesn't look like we have other questions.
Great. So that concludes the presentation for tonight. We'd like to ask if there's any other questions, comments, or additional information that council would like to see.
Do we have any comments? I am good. This was a lot to digest. It'll come to me tomorrow.
We don't have to go down this if this is not too relevant right now, but I saw in the council communications that the ridership and utilization numbers for transportation options would be available if we wanted it. Is that something that's better suited to just like email out to us or to put up next time? Like what's the ideal way to handle that?
So we have that information for you. We do plan on including that in the council communication for next week for you.
Oh, for next week. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
All right. So this is just the remaining budget meetings. Next week, we're going to be looking at the airport fund budget summary, at financial policies, and then we'll have our first public hearing.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
September 30th.
Oh, wait. Go back a slide.
Nothing on September 30th.
So September 30th, when we talked to council on the schedule, that was a day that you all marked as If we didn't need it for the budget, then we wouldn't schedule a meeting because these meetings tend to be pretty heavy. And so that's going to be really dependent on you all in the meeting next week in terms if you have any additional questions or want any information.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so we are now at mayor and council comments. Do we have any council comments? Okay. I do have one, and Councilmember Yarborough and I were there at the senior center last Saturday. Every once a month they hand out, the second Saturday of the month they hand out free food. It's our senior free food giveaway, so it kind of works like a little grocery store. People come through, fill up their carts, and they can move along their way. This was the largest one I've seen yet, and they've provided food for people. It was about over 240 individuals, which was it had reached over 115 houses. So it was very exciting, but it also tells us that there's a need. So that's that was that big thing, is we're looking at closing the gaps and looking at our budget. Really the heart of what we're doing is for the people. So I think about what all these folks are doing with Senior Center, Children's Youth and Families, they're all of these components, the library, museum. We can't forget those things that really make our community what they are. So, and we do need more. Yes, we do need a larger space. People were looped around. It was very hard to get through. Wheelchair. Yep. So we need a bigger space. Maybe the gym. So looking like perhaps if we keep it at the senior center.
The memorial building, is that what you're thinking of?
That would be good. That would be great.
I was looking for Jeff Friesen. We'll get with Jeff Friesen tomorrow.
He left. Okay, let me know.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, any others? Okay. So, city manager remarks?
I do have some remarks.
You do?
Tonight.
Wow.
So when you, again, kind of off the schedule on the September 30th that Councilmember Rodriguez brought up, you also looked at some dates in November because Tuesday the 4th is Election Day, Tuesday the 11th is Veterans Day. So you scheduled 2 meetings in November for, what was Monday the 3rd? So you scheduled the meetings for Monday the 13th and Monday the 17th. Monday the 3rd and Monday the 17th. Because then we also had 11/18 travel out to NLC.
Yeah.
NLC actually adjusted their schedule this year, and so it starts later. So we can go back to the original Tuesday date of the 18th if council desires, or council can keep it on the 17th.
Who all is going to NLC?
I
haven't.
I don't think anyone's going. It doesn't. It normally starts on a Wednesday. That's why people would leave on a Tuesday. But this year it starts on a Thursday, so you wouldn't need to leave until Wednesday.
Okay.
So that's the NLC change. So we could put the meeting back on the 18th if council desires, or we can leave it on the 17th.
Okay. Well, I know half of us probably don't care. You'll be gone. But I would say let's keep it on Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't sound like we're sending a lot of folks.
Okay.
Anybody, yeah. Okay.
That'll work. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. City attorney remarks.
No comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second? Second. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Nope. We are adjourned.